Welcome back to Utrecht. It's 2:30 in the afternoon here. I know on the east coast of the USA it's only 8:30 in the morning, and even earlier on the west coast. But hey, this is the opening day of 3 weeks of coverage on NBCSN of the Tour de France. And we've started in glorious sunny conditions as we now watch the riders line up here. This is Robert Hessing. He's known to the Americans. He has won in the past the Amgen Tour of California.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, not surprisingly, Paul, he gets the best cheer so far. A Dutchman departing on home soil here as we switch back to watch Greg van Avermaet come up towards the finish. And Avermaet not his third best at the check. He was 10 seconds off the pace of Jos van Emden. Now, Van Emden finished very strongly and held Luc Derbisch at bay by 30-odd seconds, and it looks as though he's doing the same now to Greg van Avermaet, who's also losing ground. He might consolidate or hold on to third place if he gets to the finish in a bit of a hurry.
Well, Van Emden was third in the National Time Trial Championship, so he's got a fair reference. But this man, Greg van Avermaet, realises he's got to do as much as he can to put a fast time in here, because as we head down towards Belgium and the finish at the top of the Mur de Huy, a lot of riders will be dreaming about the possibility of wearing the yellow jersey in the first couple of days. And the reason that they're doing that is to try and limit their losses in an individual time trial like this.
Well, 15:46. He holds on to third place for the moment. Jos van Emden, a Dutchman, heading up the leaderboard. Everybody's enjoying themselves. And, boy, that water looks inviting right now. The temperature here is around about 35, 36 degrees Celsius. We're tickling 100 degrees at the moment, just slightly short of that. We go back out on course and pick up Michele Scarponi of Astana. They're under a cloud again after the situation overnight with Lars Boom, who's still to start the time trial, by the way. As we'll tell you more about that, because we should see Mark Cavendish. And there he is. Mark Cavendish is getting himself into the start house now as we look at also Scarponi dodging amongst the crowds.
Please put your hands together for the next missile, Mark Cavendish!
25 stage wins in his career. He now wants more.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top!
The concentration on his face. Paul, he is an incredible bike rider, and I feel he's refound his old form. Stage 1, 12 months ago, was an absolute disaster for him, finishing in Harrogate. He fell at the feet of his parents, of the British government, and of the royal family, crashing on the finishing line.
A very sad day for him.
So we're just picking up again on Michele Scarponi. And he's settling out on course. But let's hear what Mark Cavendish had to say at the team presentation a couple of days ago.
Mark, heading into this year's tour, what kind of confidence do you have in your fitness, and what confidence do you have in the team?
I'm super happy with my fitness and my form. I've won throughout the year this year. Touch wood, everything's gone to plan leading up in the last weeks, and actually Edix Quickstep coming in with a super strong team for winning across the 21 days. We're completely motivated, and the ambience is good at the dinner table, and that's always a good sign leading into the beginning of the Tour de France.
There's going to be a lot of heavy climbing this year. What opportunities are out there for you?
And then mostly in the first 2 weeks. In the last week, there's only Paris, you know, so it's going to be a very front-heavy Tour de France for me personally, but the team are looking to win throughout the 21 days, and then I'll be surviving through to Paris, you know. To be fair, I've been scared at more Tour de France's of the time cut, and this one, I think they're heavy days, but I think bar 2 days we should be pretty safe throughout the day.
Yeah, Mark Cavendish, he's looking for results in this opening week. He's got 4 shots at possible victories here as we head down towards the end of the first 9 days of this race. Still no change in the overall. It is the Dutchman giving it a perfect start at the moment. Jos van Emden heads the leaderboard, but there's plenty to come. The Tour de France on NBCSN is brought to you by Giant Bicycles, the world leader in cycling technology and craftsmanship. Learn more at giantbicycles.com. Buy chocolate milk, trusted by athletes, backed by science. And by US Bank, all of us serving you. Member FDIC. Looking on the Chateau of the Haar Castle here in the centre of Utrecht, and now we're picking up with the Australian Rowan Dennis, who not long ago had taken the world hour record after Jens Voigt had also set the figures there, and now Rowan here has lost that to Sir Bradley Wiggins. But Rowan Dennis is a time trialist, and he's driving for Team BMC here as he races along a corridor of noise. So, Rowan Dennis underway here. No change overall, except Robert Gesink has gone through the checkpoint just 5 seconds slower than his countryman, Josh van Emden. And that might prove to be significant. At the finishing line, though, it's still Durbridge second and Greg van Avermaet in third.
Well, I think that's an important thing to note there. Robert Gesink there, Phil, at just 5 seconds, because he's not one of the great individual time trialists, but it shows that he's in ascending form, because this is an indicator of how people are riding. This is the 6-time French national champion we're looking at here, Sylvain Chavanel. He went through with the, well, it's now down to the 3rd best time at the halfway point, but he's an experienced rider. He knows how to finish off an individual time trial like this, just keeping a little bit of energy under the bonnet for the final few kilometres.
Well, Jens, you know what it's like once the Tour de France did start in Berlin, which is where you live. But at the moment, we're talking now of 2 Dutchmen heading up the leaderboard. A perfect start, isn't it?
It is, yes, and definitely it will make the millions of Dutch fans very, very happy. They're going to be very pleased coming out on a beautiful sunny day like this, seeing their own countrymen performing in a way like that. Yep, we are off to a promising start here.
I think we are. Now, I wonder if Sylvain Chavanel can do anything here. 8 seconds off the pace of Van Emden as he goes under 1 kilometre to go.
Well, he's looking at a time of 15 minutes and 11 seconds, and I did a couple of calculations last night, Phil, and I thought the finishing winning time would be around about 16 minutes. It just goes to show how far off I was with that, because we've already got Jos van Emden has set the bar at 15 minutes and 11 seconds. It's a rapid speed around here.
Well, they're picking up a tailwind as they come to the finish, as we shoot back out on course. Richie Port here. Three days in the pink jersey in the Giro d'Italia. Had a disastrous end to this year's Giro d'Italia. In fact, it didn't end at all for him. He went home before the end. Let's have a look, though, at the finish of Sylvain Chavanel. He hasn't improved on his loss at the turn to Josh van Emden. He's hanging on to 2nd place at the moment. It's a good sign, though, that Sylvain Chavanel has found his form at the right time for the Tour de France.
Yeah, well, he's not going to get the dream yellow jersey start that he wanted. He's outside the time of Jos van Emden, 15:11. In fact, he's lost a bit of a lot more time on the second half of the race, because as he stops the clock there, Phil, he's lost himself 30 seconds.
Which is what they're all doing at the moment. A terrific ride by Van Emden, I think. There's the face of Chavanel. Port is now underway as we pick him up on course. The time trial champion of Australia, the wingman of the big favourite from Great Britain, Chris Froome. The stars are making the start. Well, we saw Daniel Tekla-Heimanot be the first rider out of the house. This man on the same team from the same country, Eritrea, is now Kudus, Matt Kudus, who is the youngest rider in the race. What a moment. So, Mahawi Kudus underway in the colours of MTN Quebec, which is an all-African setup, and they're setting history as being such in this year's Tour de France. So, as we continue to see the race being led by a Dutchman, let's hope it continues for a little while as the time trial goes on in Holland. Well, this is Mark Cavendish here now as he comes up the straight, and he's made a pretty good time considering we don't talk about Mark as a time trialist. He's just over 16 minutes as he comes up to the line here. This has been a routine day out for Mark Cavendish. Tomorrow he'll be a bit more serious, I think. So Cava's got that over and done with. Paul now, he'll be happy with that. He'll be more concerned with the finish in Zeeland tomorrow, I would suspect.
Yes, 1 minute and 10 seconds is a huge amount of time for Mark Cavendish to lose this afternoon. But I have to say that on the far side of the track, Nasser Bouhanni, he will be trying to nurse himself through these opening stages, because he had a very dramatic crash at the finish of the French National Championships. And there was a big question mark right up until 5 o'clock last night whether or not he'd be able to come out of the starting gate. But he said, Phil, if it was any other race, he would not be here. But this is the Tour de France. That's what's so special about this event. Everybody wants to be here. It's the biggest theatre in the world for a professional cyclist.
And Nasser's a sprinter as well, and we're looking for Mark Cavendish at the finish at Zeeland tomorrow, I suspect. Like Rowan Dennis, his last Tour de France was in 2013, and like Rowan Dennis, he didn't get round the course. He abandoned the race on stage 6. So he's back again, he's back with a vengeance, and he wasn't going to let it crash. And it was a spectacular crash in France in the National Championships. This is Rowan Dennis now, and he's taken a minute out of Lars Bach, and that is a good scalp. Bach is a former time trial champion of Denmark. Rowan just flies by him, and right before a huge audience here. I wonder if he can find that 1 second to give him the lead.
Well, that is all he's looking for here, 15 minutes and 11 seconds, but he seems to be going faster in the second part of the course. You could see the speed difference between those two riders when he caught Lars Bach. He used a little bit of the slipstream, flipped straight past him. That will give him an added advantage of maybe a second or so. He was 1 second off at half distance, but he'd be liking to turn that into a 1 second advantage if he can.
Richie Porte here, the champion of Australia as well, as he continues, though just checking down at he's not into the leader positions down at the check yet. In fact, he's not on the board. I'm not sure he's even gone there just at the moment.
Yes,
Paul.
he's just gone through in 12th place, looking for 22 seconds. This may well be a little bit short and violent for Richie Porte, but the important thing is to set the advantages and to set the times for his teammates who go off a little later in the afternoon.
2 people fell in the water there. The crowd don't seem too worried about that, as the Tour de France is running down the quays here in the centre of Utrecht. And Rowan Dennis clearly ahead of his countryman by some seconds, looking to try and convert a 1 second deficit at the turn and beat the time of Josh van Emden at the finish. He's closing in.
We can almost feel, when you look at the images of him, you can almost feel the power that he's generating from his body there. He certainly's got great power. That's a massive chainring he's got on the front. He's got a 56-tooth chainring on the front end of his machine, and that's a much bigger gear that he can develop than the average bike that you'd get from the bike shop.
Look at this.
Oh, huge time.
Look at this. Is he going to go inside 15 seconds? That would be unthinkable on this course of 13.8 seconds. 8 kilometres rather, as he swings around now. He is on the ride of his life here. Rowan Dennis is going to put a mark up on the board, which many riders, and maybe all of them, are going to find impossible to match. This is a man who held the world hour record. He was second to Richie Porte in the national titles this year. Now he comes up towards the line. He must know, he must see the clock as he pushes out the seconds. He's inside. What an incredible ride. Paul, that could go the distance.
Well, this man has got a serious reference. The former world hour record holder, a world champion on the track. This man, I think, over the last 10 days has specifically aimed for this. This is probably the only stage of the Tour de France where he's given a free rein, because the BMC squad from the United States are here to look after the interests of TJ Van Garderen. But today, because of his pedigree, they've said, go on, Rowan, it's your day today. And there he set the bar very, very high. He did 14 minutes and 56 seconds.
And
I'm going to have to revise my times again.
Well, 15 seconds into Van Emden, 33 seconds into Robert Hessing, 45 into the Canadian champion there, Svein Tuft, who we haven't seen, but he's in 4th slot. Well, that is a superb ride. And, you know, all the experts were predicting a ride of inside 15.5 minutes, and here we've got a rider go inside 15 minutes. So watch out, that could go to a yellow jersey by the end of this day. So all the people in Australia better not go to bed now, because they could be on a big one here. This is Nasser Bouhanni out on course as he continues. He won't be looking for the fast time. He'll just continue towards the finish. This is Castroviejo, a very useful man, once pulled on the leader's jersey in the Tour of Spain by winning the first man over in the team title, but that's gone by some considerable distance. As he comes up only 3rd slot, as he hits the line, he'll hold it for now, 15.19.
There's Let's not forget a national time trial champion of Spain as well. 3 national time trial champions on the Movistar squad, and I think that's an inkling that they feel it's important to have a strong team for the team time trial at the end of stage 9.
So just watching now as the riders continue here to go. We're now looking at a man who could be a challenger throughout this race. Had 4 days in the Giro d'Italia's pink jersey in 2014. Rigoberto Urán takes the applause of the crowd. Rigoberto on his way. Now the legs I recognise, the face I recognise. You may not recognise him. He hasn't been here for a couple of years, but when he came last time, he finished second in the Tour de France. Nairo Quintana. And this is one of the big 4. And they've chosen to start him very early in the start order in case the rain does turn up towards the end of the day, when the other favourites will start. We'll be back with him in a moment. Heads to the oldest active speedway in the world, the Milwaukee Mile, the Wisconsin 250, Sunday, July 12th on NBC SN. The Tour de France, about 55 riders have gone so far, the 198 on this opening time trial day, and Rowan Dennis has set an incredible time at the top. So it won't be long now before Nairo Quintana gets underway. He starts on the hour, so a couple of minutes away for the start, and they've placed him tactfully in the beginning, expecting the weather may change towards the end, and it could help the young Colombian.
Well, that's a big gamble that Team Movistar can play, Phil, because they've got Nairo Quintana, but they've also got Alejandro Valverde. Now, he will be the rider who will start later on in the afternoon for the Spanish Movistar squad.
Well, we're looking at the campus at Utrecht here in Utrecht, and I'll tell you what, you could be forgiven because the lines in front of my eyes could be tuning in the television. But anyway, we're waiting for the overall standings in the situation. Rowan Dennis has turned in a 55-kilometre-an-hour time trial, which is very close to the fastest ever taken in the Tour de France. And Dennis is way ahead of Josh van Emden. And the Australian will be expecting or hoping they can convert that to a yellow jersey. But hey, there's still 130 riders to go, so there's plenty of time to improve on that. We're now waiting for Nairo Quintana into the start house. He goes on the hour, and he's one of our big 4s. We quickly go out on course at the moment with Rigoberto Urán. Urán himself, the champion of Colombia, while another Colombian man who hopes he'll be first to the podium in Paris in 3 weeks' time is now making ready in the start house himself. Big moments this for Quintana. He's only just come back to the Tour de France after a 2-year gap when he finished second.
10 secondes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, he may have come from a lifetime away in Colombia, but the crowd know him. The Colombian flag in the background. Quintana has come here as a very popular entrant in the Tour de France. He's confident. He came here last time. He won the white jersey as the best newcomer. He won the King of the Mountains, and he finished second in the Tour. Okay, so just look at the crowd. I can believe it. I expected Holland to produce the crowd. The two countries, they live side by side. Belgium and Holland love the sport of cycling. This is a massive crowd, though. We thought London and Yorkshire did so well last year when the start of the Tour de France was from Leeds. But boy, they've turned everybody in Holland here. It's a much smaller country than the United Kingdom, and they're all out here. Well, as we're watching here, Quintana, let's go inside the race and pick up with Steve Pino. If I can hear you, Steve, with all these people shouting.
Yeah, and I could barely hear you. Now, it's interesting watching Quintana get ready for the race. You know, they measure the bag to make sure it conforms. When they rolled his bike, and I swear to God, it came up to just below my waist, I looked at his sport director, and they said it's the smallest bike we have. Extra small. 126 pounds of fury in front of me right now.
Absolutely superb, and he's flying along this course. Now, he's not a noted time trial rider. His ambition will be to get a time close to the big four riders we've mentioned, which would be Contador, Froome, and Quintana and Nibali. Let's have a look at the standings as it is now. An incredible ride by Rowan Dennis, 14:56. A known time trialist, could be the best time, but we won't know for a while yet. Van Emden holds second, and Castroviejo sits in third. We're off to a great start in this year's Tour de France. Welcome back to the Tour de France. These are the fans enjoying a day out in Utrecht in Holland for the Grand Départ of the Tour de France. Now, we should be seeing Tyler Farrar now in the start house. Let's see if he's in there. Yes, he is. You may not recognise him because he's changed teams now. He rides for the African setup, MTN Quebec. He saw his teammate, Daniel Tekla-Heimenot, be the first rider off for Africa earlier on, about just over an hour ago. And now Tyler Farrar, 6 career Grand Tour stage wins, making his bid again. Now, as Tyler Farrar rolls away, it's a good time to remind him that he won a stage in the Tour de France on July the 4th back in 2011. It was, of course, a sprint because Farrar is a sprinter. But this was a great result. He's in the white jersey with the blue helmet as he pushes his way through. They're all gritting their teeth, but hey, when it's July the 4th, nobody can beat an American. And that's a big win. He'd love to find that form again over the next 3 races. Now, there's only 3 American riders in the race. We're a bit down on numbers, but we're there in quality this year because, as you can see, back in 2011, there were 10. And in 2012, there were 8. So let's go up to the studio and talk with Bob, Christian and Todd. Why have we only got 3 riders in the race this year, boys?
That's a good question as we watched another rider come through on a very hot day, guys. We've talked about just how warm it is. Temperature, folks at our hotel saying this is the warmest it's ever been in Utrecht, not just this year. So temperatures on the rise. How is it to ride in heat like this, Christian? I know it's only 8.5 miles, but this is brutal.
Well, it's not the actual race that's the worst part is the warming up for this race. Sitting on a stagnant trainer, sitting out there with all the engines, all the people watching you, that's where it's hard. That's a good time to really keep that ice vest on, keep yourself cool. Very good time, Wilco Kettleton coming across the line, but still 30 seconds back behind Rowan Dennis.
15:26, Bob. Do you like riding in the heat, or are you more of a cool guy?
No, I was bad in the heat. It needed to be cold and dry. In the heat, I wilted. I died. But Wilco Kettleman, that's a great ride by the young Dutchman. Big hope for Dutch cycling that he can do something in the GC in this year's Tour de France, and he's off to a great start.
A lot of sports go into what's called, a bit of downtime for Americans. Tennis has done it. Golf has done it. Is cycling in one of those phases now where there's just not a lot of young riders coming in through the system?
I think there's a lot of good riders in the system right now. Sometimes a little bit of sickness, injury, things like that. Like, there's some great riders who were here last year who aren't here this year, but I'm sure will be here next year in 2016. But, like Phil said, the 3 guys that are here, they're very good quality.
Tyler Farrar, you know him well. He's a Pacific Northwest guy. A bit of a renaissance man. You were telling me how he'll get up early in the morning and go do a little ice climbing, a little hiking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ty, when he's home, almost does too much. He needs to relax. The off-season is supposed to be the off-season, Ty. Chill out. But, yeah, Ty's a big ice climber. He does a lot of things. But
there you see John Degenkolb. One guy that is missing from that giant team is Marcel Kittel. And when you heard the news that, Bob, he wasn't going to be here, what was your first reaction?
Well, we were looking forward to a real showdown between the best sprinters in the world. Cavendish, Greipel, Kristoff, and especially Marcel Kittel, winner of 4 stages last year, 4 stages the year before, and the dominant sprinter. Lack of form, lack of fitness. He's not here, and that's a little bit of a heartbreak.
So another rider coming through. Temperature right around 90+ degrees. This is Uran coming to the finish. Well, I tell you, we were talking about what we thought these guys would come to. Christian, you were saying 16:20. Are you just blown away by how fast they're coming through?
They're flying. If this is correct, if that is the correct distance of the race, they average 55 kilometers per hour around the city of Utrecht. That is very fast. And we don't even know that some people might go faster than Rowan Dennis. So they probably will. But what Rowan already has done, 14:56 over this course, is blistering fast.
Big credit to the fans who have turned out on a day that is very warm. For the folks that live in this part of the world, they're not used to these kind of temperatures. I know the people at our hotel were saying it is not normally like this. And now the riders having to attack this grueling course. Just over 8.5 miles. Christian, you were saying it's not super technical, but it's technical enough that if you aren't paying attention, you can get yourself in trouble quickly.
You can get yourself in a lot of trouble. There's, the Dutch are known for having a lot of traffic islands, this and that. So there's a few times you have to have your guard up. This is a course where you want to know very well going through a lot of these blind corners because you have the barriers on the side. So when they did in training, there might have not been in those barriers. And then you add the people, it just takes away from that apex of the corner and you can't see through it. So you have to have complete trust in knowing that course, maybe having that radio in the director behind you in the car reminding you, full gas to this corner, no brakes.
We saw moments ago Stef Clement on course, one of the Dutch riders participating here. Bob, is it an advantage to go early or is it better to go late?
Depends on the barometer. As it gets hotter throughout the day, maybe an advantage to start earlier in the rotation.
This is Simon Yates. Remember, the yellow jersey is on the line. Who will wear it at the end of the day? We will find out more of the individual time trial when we return to Utrecht. You're watching it all break down as Dennis continues to lead here on NBCSN.
Looking down on the Colombian rider down there, Nairo Quintana. He's a man who'll dance over the Pyrenees, but that's 10 days down the road. Now he's trying to dance over the roads of Utrecht here and deliver a reasonable time in the time trial. So he's on his way to the line now, Quintana here, and he's not pierced the leaderboard at the checkpoint. What we do know, though, is that Rowan Dennis's average speed at the finish of 55.45 is a record average speed for the Tour de France. As he now runs up towards the last kilometre, he's not expected to challenge Dennis. He's not on the leaderboard where Dennis is at the checkpoint, but he's riding to stay close to the other favourites in the Tour de France. The long road, Paul, the noise of the crowd. Quintana sitting in second time at this point, but he will lose time as he races this last 600 metres.
Well, I don't think he's going to lose as much as he might have done on a course like this. So this man has ridden on courage here this afternoon of the worst possible terrain that he could be racing over for a man who is reputedly one of the best climbers in the world. It's this pan-flat, pancake course here in Holland. I think when the clock stops at the end of the day, he'll be quite satisfied as he's thrown his bike around all of these corners very, very aggressively indeed.
Well, he knows that Contador, Froome are going to ride hard, Nibali too. He's got to give it his best shot. He wants to stay close to those riders for the first week before he gets them in the Pyrenees and can take them on. This is a good ride. Hey, he's comparing himself against one of the best riders in the world at the time trial, who set the highest ever average speed for a time trial, and he's crossed the line 14th to Rowan Dennis. A very good ride, I think, by Nairo Quintana. He'll wait to see what the big boys do at the end of the day, see how close he is to them.
Well, that's the important thing to remember, Phil. He's not racing against Rowan Dennis. He will put minutes into Rowan Dennis once this race goes up into the big high mountains.
Everybody enjoying themselves around Utrecht here as Quintana is being mobbed as well and enjoying. Rowan Dennis stays at number 1 at the moment. So all the fun and games there as the crowd are coming in here. They're trying desperately to control the media here. Tranquilo is what they're shouting at them to try and let Nairo Quintana get through to round the back of the podium there. Done a good ride, but he's not going to see him on the podium today, that's for sure. Rafael Majka who gave it a couple of good stage wins. Once Alberto Contador was out, his teammate with that broken leg last year, Micah had his chance. He took him with open arms. He not only won stages in the mountains, he became the king of the mountains of the Tour de France. He's back. He'll help Contador as long as he can, but hey, he's also got the quality to have a great ride again himself. So he's come over the finishing line, Micah. Still no change. Dennis holds the fastest ever average speed in the Tour de France at 55.45 kilometers per hour. All right, well, it's now time for the Road ID pop quiz, and today's question for you all is: what city hosted the first ever Tour de France start in the Netherlands? I might have slipped that in about an hour ago, so I hope you're all listening. Submit your answer at roadid.com/TDF for a chance to win a trip to the 2016 Tour de France. Daily prizes like the all-new Road ID Black Edition wristband. Well, the time trial continues. Rowan Dennis is around the back. He can't leave the area till his time is beaten, because he'll be needed for the presentation. And with a time like he's done, the whole of Australia will be sitting on the edge of the barbecues right now.
They certainly will. Very impressive ride, Phil. Almost 55.5 kilometers an hour. It really is quite remarkable. We're looking at Michael Albacini, 2-stage victories in the Tour of Romandy for him, and also a member of that Orica Green Age squad of Luke Durbridge. Interestingly enough, Simon Yates, the young British rider, he crossed the line in 11th place. He's lost himself 46 seconds.
Behind the dikes we all bike. Yes, in Holland they all speak English, believe me. Just a small sample of the canals here around Holland. This is the situation at the finishing line. Rowan Dennis with his great time, 14.56. Josh van Emden, 15 seconds. Castillejo, champion of Spain, 3rd. Kelderman, champion of Holland, 4th. Robert Essink is the best of the high finishes expected in Paris. He's in 5th at the moment, 33 seconds off the pace. This is Rein Taramai coming through, the former Estonian time trial champion, heading up towards the finish, but not rocking any boats with his time. It's still Dennis in the house, but there's still plenty of riders to go. The Tour de France on NBCSN is brought to you by Jelly Belly Sports Beans, clinically proven to improve sports performance. By Head Sweats, the world leader in performance headwear. Check out our elite collection featuring ice-fill technology to keep athletes cool at headsweats.com. And by The Feed, receive a free Camelback Podium bottle and Scratch Labs hydration kit with any order at thefeed.com. Welcome back to a sun-drenched Utrecht in Holland here as we get the time trial underway. No change on the leaderboard at all. This is Roman Kreuziger out on course here, riding for the Tinkoff Saxo team. Expected to be a top man alongside Alberto Contador this year. Kreuziger just relieved. He's back in now. All of the doping controversy, the UCI didn't appeal. He's clear to race again. As we look at Thibaut Pinot here, the man that finished 3rd in the Tour de France a year ago.
Again, one of the riders starting very early on. He starts at 47 minutes past the hour. He was the big revelation for the Tour de France last year, finishing 3rd place overall. He was very good in the recent Tour of Switzerland as well, and I think he's coming into form at the right time. His Achilles heel, if you like, in the sport is the individual time trial. That's somewhere where he has to improve over the next couple of seasons.
Bonjour, Le Tour, as we look around the pavement artist here of Utrecht, which is more or less the centre of the Netherlands, by the way. And tomorrow we go out to the coast, to Zeeland. This is the arrival of Clement. I don't think it's going to be a great time, and he comes up towards the finish. He's already conceding just about now 1 minute on the time of Rowan Dennis, which again emphasises what an incredible performance that Dennis has done, because Stef Clement has been the champion of the Netherlands in the time trial. but it's not going to be today. He's gone outside 16 minutes here. It just shows you, doesn't it? It was an incredible performance by Dennis. It's head and shoulders better than anybody else at the moment. It does represent the highest ever average speed in a time trial in the Tour de France. Looking down here now as we look down on the finish line of the opening day of the time trial, as we go back into the start house now as the riders continue. This is Jan Bakelants. Here's Jan Bakelants then as he gets settled in now. He's the stage 6 winner of the 2014 Criterium du Dauphiné.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top.
And he's underway, the great Belgian rider. He's had his big moments in the Tour de France over the years. This will be his 3rd tour, in fact. It's the first one he'll probably remember most, though. 2013, he held off the peloton as they came after him. Bakelants was getting a timed gap over the field. A yellow jersey would await him. This is in Ajaccio. As he gets across the line, it was Peter Sagan who snatched 2nd place, but it wasn't to help him there. He lost the 2nd. Bakelants pulled on the maillot jaune of the Tour de France. Now, there was another rider who rode the Tour de France in 2013. He was also on the same team as Jan Bakelants. What happened the night after the victory, Jens Voigt?
Well, I can tell you, I did share a room with Bucky that night, and he was really, really tempted to actually sleep in that yellow jersey. I could talk him out of it. I said, no, man, you need all the rest you can get. But he kept that little lion you get as a trophy. He kept that next to him on his pillow. He was over his head, excited about it. And I was so proud to be with him in the team because, hey, he saved our Tour de France right there and then.
Absolutely, Jens. That's a super story. These are the little things that us commentators never get to know about. That's fantastic. Jan Bakelants riding his 3rd Tour de France today. The beautiful, pristine streets of Utrecht here as our ride. This is the old town, by the way, just underneath the bell tower there. As there are some people down there. The course doesn't quite go through the middle, although there is a narrow place the other side, which we're trying to work out. It might be part of the neutralised section tomorrow. Catching up out on course with Jan Bakelants. Won his stage of the Tour de France in Ajaccio. In Corsica back in 2013, he held the peloton off by just 1 second to earn himself the yellow jersey for a couple of days. And now he's riding his 3rd Tour de France and won't be expecting to win the time trial. Not now he knows what Rowan Dennis was capable of.
Well, I think that really has set the bar extremely high, Phil. That's an incredible performance, and obviously one of those riders who is going to be a specialist of the prologue over the next few years, like Bradley Wiggins or Christopher Boardman over the years have managed to prepare themselves for the Tour de France individual opening. Today's not really a prologue as far as I'm concerned. It's 13.8 kilometers. It's pretty much a full-on time trial. It's too long to be regarded as a prologue time trial.
The crowd just gets bigger and bigger as they now see Roman Kreuziger go past. Well, another quick spin around the tower. This is the situation at the moment. Still Dennis, the only man inside 15 minutes. Van Emden, Castroviejo. This is held for a while now, these top 5. Nobody getting near them, and I can tell you, looking at the time check after around 8 minutes of riding, nobody's getting near them at the time check either at the moment. So we'll see how it goes. Albacini in camera at the moment as the time trial continues. Can anybody beat Rowan Dennis? Welcome back. We're looking here at the arms and the bicycle of Ryder Hejjedal, the Canadian rider, the only Canadian to have won the Giro d'Italia, and he's gone back to his old form. I'm convinced that. Had a brilliant end to the Giro this year, strong. He's on his way. And so the Canadian who really has lit up the Canadian record books over these last few years, he's going to be a strong man on the Cannondale Garmin team this year. He's going to have to back up with people like Andrew Talansky as well. Let's catch up there with Steve Perino, who's in the best seat in the house inside the race.
We are just behind the rider, Hesjedal, who's right on course, and a little insight just how, while at first blush it doesn't look technical, I just talked to Max Chiandri of BMC, the director of the man who's in the lead right now. About 2.5 kilometers roundabout. You guys road, so in his mind, he said there's about 3 hot spots out here. According to what the boys were saying in the studio earlier, one reason maybe to go later in the race, according to the boys at Cannondale-Garmin, is so that information can come back to the start to guys like Hesjedal and guys like Talansky to tell them exactly what's going on out there in terms of how technical it is. In addition to that, they've got guys taking splits, and so they know where they should be relative to their teammates at those spots. So they're trying to really dial everything in because, again, only 8 points.
Yeah, we've got most of that, Steve. You were breaking up a little bit. But yes, the time trialing world now has become such a technical race because literally every second does count. And they know that. There's 2 races, one to win the time trial and the leaders to hold each other in their gun sights. Back into the start house once again now as we continue here. This is Bob Jungels riding his first Tour de France, Paul, but the way they talk about him back home in Luxembourg, this guy is a star of the future.
Certainly is. He's a youngster, but he's also the national time trial champion as well. That's why he's got the red, white and blue on as champion of Luxembourg.
Yes, and actually the first time he's won that title as well, but he is a young man, and now he gets a crack at the Tour de France. It's the first tour for him. And he must be amazed that so many people watch the Tour de France. He won't have seen this before as he makes his way. Luxembourg cycling is a small nation, the World Duchy of Luxembourg, and there aren't too many cyclists come out, but those that do are good.
Yeah, well, rider Hesjedal, one of a 3-pronged attack to try and win here for Cannondale-Garmin, alongside Dan Martin and Andrew Talansky. He's also a pretty impressive time trialist himself.
Well, as we have a little bit look around there, let's have a remind ourselves now. The NBC Sports Cycling Challenge is back again. You can sign up, select your teams, and this year, thanks to Garmin, you could win a Garmin Edge 1000. Plus daily prizes like today's featured prize, which is a new Giro Synth MIPS helmet. It's all at nbcsports.com/cycling challenge. Good luck. We continue on the road here. We're looking at rider Hesjedal now settling in for 3 weeks of tough cycling, and he could be in our cameras in another 3 weeks' time too, because he's a real challenger. As we continue, we're leaving Utrecht tomorrow, and eventually after about 3 weeks, all the roads will take us into Paris. Top thoroughbreds compete for a shot at the richest event in horse racing as the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series continues today at 5 Eastern on NBC. And the time trial continues today now as we have a look down on the Utrecht football ground there as the race continues with no change in the overall whatsoever. Daryl Impey, South African rider, has just left the start house. He rides for the Australian Orica Green Edge, wore the yellow jersey for a couple of days in 2013. Waiting now for the start of Gianpaolo Caruso. Nobody piercing the checkpoint at all. They're just all slowing down rather than going faster. The Ran of the late starters is the closest. He went through in 10th place, out on course now as we continue here with Daryl Impey, the champion of South Africa and the man who lit up South Africa when he became the first wearer of the yellow jersey, riding for Orica Green Edge in 2013. He wore it for 2 days, and what a great 2 days it was.
Well, he's come out of the starting gate very, very quickly. You can see the nervousness of his pedaling style there as he lines himself up for these corners to perfection. Most of these riders will have got a little chance this morning early on to ride around the course and see what it's like once the barriers were in place and actually see the race in race conditions.
Good time trial riding here by Daryl. He's a pretty good time trialist. We won't get any idea if he's challenging the time of Dennis. at the check. We took that wide, though, as we swung back to the face of Andre Greipel here. 6 stage wins in history in the Tour de France, the only rider with a Tour de France stage win of the last 4 years, each of the last 4 years. We call him the Gorilla, that's his nickname. He's a big man, and boy, he'll be ripping along in the sprints, maybe tomorrow. Okay, let's see what sort of cheer he gets.
10 secondes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top.
And as Greipel descends the ramp, I'm sure the crowd noise is music to his ears, and that on cue, he has another talent as Andre Greipel. Have a look at this. On the line, Greipel this time has got the better of Mark Cavendish.
Are you ready? Ready for the upcoming stages? In Paris, you're gonna look like old faces. Cause that gorilla is really not joking. Your small little legs is gonna be smoking. When that gorilla passes on the finish line, you can just close your eyes and feel ganz klein. The beat's very small, he's gonna make you crawl. That gorilla is gonna make you scream. You're gonna melt away like Italian ice cream. Cause I am the boss and I'm always right. We never give up, we are ready to fight.
Alter, was für ein Traum.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's the first time I've seen that, and I had no idea he was a bit of a rapper as well. But anyway, Andre Greipel, he will be lighting up our screens, I'm sure, in this opening week of the Tour de France. He is a great character. He's as popular in all of the English-speaking countries, maybe even more so than back home in Germany. See if we can pick up now with Bob Jungels out on course, the Luxembourg rider. Big moment for him. He's riding his first Tour de France. He rides as the time trial champion of Luxembourg, and he can soak up the atmosphere today. Now, Jens, you've watched this young man, Bob Jungels, develop, and you must know a little bit about him.
Absolutely, I do. Bob, let me put it that way. If I look at Bob, I see a younger version of Fabian Cancellara. He's a great time trialer. He's going to be very promising in the classics. He won the Paris-Roubaix of the under-23 category. So he is a very, very promising talent. To me, he's just a younger Fabian.
Wow, so we're going to expect some times of him in the years to come. Jens, he's just he's giving everything here today. And I mean, what's it like when you ride your first Tour de France and everybody in the world's looking at you?
Well, I believe it's going to be very, very exciting for him. I mean, I sent him a quick message yesterday night to say, hey, Bob, best of luck for you tomorrow. Stay safe. And he replied, yeah, man, I'm giving everything I have. I'm excited. What I told him, don't think about the pressure. Don't think about the million people watching you. Just focus on your job and doing the best of your job you can do. But, yeah, he is ready. He wanted to go already last year. This year he is ready. And I believe we have a lot of fun watching him in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, but Jens, you know, riders have participated in Tour of Switzerland and other races around the calendar. When they come to a race like this, the Tour de France, for the first time, I mean, the crowd today, you don't see anything in any other bike race around the world like this one. That must be quite a shock to a youngster like Jungels.
Definitely, it is sort of like a shock situation, because if you don't see it with your own eyes, you think, yeah, it's just old men talking. The Tour is bigger, the Tour is better, it's just old men talking. But then they come to the Tour the first time and go, oh my God, you were right with everything you said. There's a million people, everyday life. They actually do pave the roads new for the Tour de France. There is a new bike, there is 1,000 of TV stations there. They only believe it once they see it with their own eyes, and it just blows them away. Every time I see it again when one rider does his first Tour de France.
Well, with a guy like Bob Jungels, he's a great individual time trialist. What's it like rubbing shoulders on a day like today with Fabian Cancellara, do you think, at breakfast?
Well, Fabian is fairly focused, and he's already, like, you know, thinking about his strategy on the race, on the corners, how he want to take and negotiate the corners. So on a day like today, people are pretty nervous and stressed out, because, I mean, it's an individual time trial. There's no hiding. You cannot hide behind your teammates. You cannot hide in the peloton. You got to show yourself full-time live, and everybody watches. Your parents and everybody else watches you. So people are nervous, not too much talking, but definitely they follow Fabian's lead to see how he warms up, how he prepares.
Well, we just seen, might have been talking there, Jens, Peter Kenyuk has just gone out for the second year, the British road racing champion, and got his place in the Tour de France this time, unlike last year when he won the title and they sent him to the Tour of Austria, which he duly won, I must add. Thibaut Pinot is in the start house, by the way, as we continue to look at riders out on course. A massive crowd. The gorilla is working hard out there, Andre Greipel. By the way, Bob Jungels has gone through the check in the 15th best time, but only conceding 14 seconds to the leader, Rowan Dennis, so you never know.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top.
Well, a partisan crowd from the Netherlands cheers away a Frenchman who finished third in the Tour de France, had his biggest moment along with Perrault last year. 2 Frenchmen on the podium in Paris. Unbelievable.
Certainly is, and it's sad for him. For me, it's sad for Pinot because he lost the victory in the Tour of Switzerland because of the individual time trialing. You know, it's important to win the Tour de France, to be good at everything, to be good at going downhill, to be good at going uphill, but also to ride against the clock. And that's the one thing that went against him. Something that I think at just 25 years of age, he'll be able to study over the next couple of years. He will be able to improve with his position, with the power that he can put out. But I think the French have got a lot of thoughts for this young man because he was pretty dramatic in his racing last year.
Well, big moment this for Pinot. Yes, he's not the best time trialist, but he knows every second counts. The significant thing about this year's Tour de France is this is the only individual time trial, and it's only 13.8 kilometres. We do have the team time trial, and again, he's not so far either, but he knows he's got to conserve losses here.
And the funny thing is, when this guy came to the top of the Tour de France, well, we lost him there. I'll tell you the story a little bit later on.
He's just gone by his minute man here, and that's Chimmerline.
And that was the amazing thing. You know, when you've got a rider who starts a minute in front of you, when you can actually catch him in a race like this, it really inspires you. You can just see on the back of his bike, by the way, that's a new innovation by his team sponsor. They've got that light flashing there. The security is becoming much more important this day and age, and they're trying that rear flashing light on the back of his bike to bring attention to the fact that you need to improve your visibility.
Well, here we're looking at Hejidal now as he swings up towards the finish. He's off the pace, you can see, to that of Rowan Dennis, but that's his own pace, Dennis. It's the fastest ever average time recorded in the history of the Tour de France. Hejidal trying to hold on to a top 25 place here at the moment. So it just shows you the quality of the ride of Rowan Dennis as Hejidal comes up towards the line with a time considerably slower, in fact, than Nairo Quintana.
Well, I did tell you that I think Nairo Quintana, when he studies the race results this afternoon, I don't think he'll be too disappointed by that individual time trial performance because, yes, it's a minute to Rowan Dennis, who is a specialist at the individual time trial, but it's what he's going to do relative to all the other overall contenders.
Well, as some people have to work here in Holland as the barges course between Belgium, France and Germany. We get back to the action with a man from Luxembourg. As Jungels has caught his minute man, he's gone through the check and seems to be accelerating. He still holds 15th best time of the check, and he's going to try now and break into the top 10. Has he done what the majority of the field cannot do, and that's go quicker over the second half of this race? He's responded with a great performance, I think.
Well, he has. Look at this. This is a very fast run, and he's not going to beat Rowan Dennis. Look at the way he's thrown his bike around that corner. He's not going to beat Rowan Dennis here this afternoon. But let's not forget, we're looking at a 22-year-old from Luxembourg. We'll mention this name a lot more in the future.
This is his big day out. This is the moment to show him to his mum and dad in Luxembourg and to the rest of the world in his first Tour de France at 22 years of age. And he's got 3 weeks of hard work ahead of him. And he hits the line with an incredible ride at this stage of the day. 6th place for Bob Jungels. Back on the road with Thibaut Pinot now. Well, new colours for FDJ for the Tour de France as Thibaut Pinot continues and hopes that this road will lead him to 3rd place or better in Paris.
Road ID, the world leader in identification for cyclists, has an all-new ID. Introducing the Black Edition. Style and peace of mind just got a new address. Your wrist. Get yours at roadid.com/new and enjoy free shipping through July 26th.
Welcome back as we arrive at the finish here with the champion of South Africa, Daryl Impey, really having given it a great ride, but he's not going to go anywhere near the time of the Australian, who still leads in Rowan Dennis, and Impey is a good marker here. He rides for Orica Green Edge, crosses the line there, 18th place and just about a minute off the pace. We've seen an incredible performance by Rowan Dennis thus far, and I wonder what the boys have got to say about that. Let's go to our talent, Todd, Bob and Christian.
Thank you, Phil. 14:56, guys, is the mark to beat. Rowan Dennis, the 25-year-old out of Australia, has that mark. What's more impressive to you, Bob, his time or that he did it on this course in this heat?
In the heat, it's impressive that he can go so quickly for so long. It's a long, hard time trial, and Rowan Dennis was absolutely flying. That might stand the test of time for the whole day. We could have our stage winner. He's going to have a long wait, though, to get that yellow jersey. He does have the fastest time on the day. Great ride by Rowan Dennis.
Christian, he's 15 seconds clear in first place.
He's well clear. I mean, let's be honest, that was fast. I mean, we could say, okay, maybe it was a shorter course, maybe he had a tail, whatever. He is much faster than the top 5. But I tell you what else sticks out to me is Robert Gesink is in 5th place, a skinny GC rider, only 33 seconds back. He's put a lot of time into the people who are going to in the other GC. Nairo Quintana actually did a very good ride. It's going to be really interesting to see how the last 10 guys in this race do today.
On a course this short, 8.57 miles, this is the shortest stage in the 2015 Tour de France. A lot of people who might be saying, Andre Greipel's a sprinter. Shouldn't he be able to generate all kinds of speed out here?
That's, you would imagine that, but it's a very top end. This is sustained power for 15 minutes, just under 15 minutes for the fastest man, and around 16 minutes. That's a totally different engine than the Sprinter. It's like a dragster versus a Formula One car. So the time trial specialists are so good at getting near their maximum and just pinning it right there. It's quite agonizing physically, but that's the specialists, and that's why they are preeminent in this discipline.
Want to remind you tonight on our Tour Prime Time at midnight Eastern, Bob and Christian will analyze today's opening time trial. We'll have our Head Sweats Ask Bob Key segment, as well as podiums and additional interviews. That's all coming up tonight, midnight Eastern on NBCS, and I know Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin will be watching.
Bet your life we will. This is going to be a great 3 weeks of cycling, and we're loving every minute of it so far. Stein de Volder has just taken the start. Now he's back in the Tour de France, and Stein is going to relish his next 3 weeks. So Stein de Volder back in the Tour de France, Jens Voigt's a little bit surprised. He doesn't seem to have a love affair with the Tour, Stein.
No, not at all. He's a very good rider. He's a solid rider. Especially he can help Fabian on the cobblestone stage on Tuesday. So I can totally see why he put him in the Tour team.
Yeah, we get to the other thing. When we spoke to Trek Factory Racing before the start of the Tour de France, we're looking here at the finish of Andre Greipel, which is a very solid finish for Andre Greipel. For a sprinter, he's going to finish inside of the top third. Talking to Trek Factory Racing before the start of the year, they said so far this season they've had 17 riders who've had to have some kind of surgery. So do you think Stein de Volder has been brought in because it's been difficult getting enough riders to actually participate in the Tour this year?
Well, the team Trek Factory Racing has been hit by a lot of injuries, a lot of crashes, starting with Fabian Cancellara. Everybody knows about his crash, and that it takes some time to come back from it. They were unlucky this season, I must admit. But no, they have a good and well-balanced team, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, interesting, but the Trek team had 17 serious injuries to the riders since the start of the season, so they need to put something right there. This is the man who leads the race at the moment, Rowan Dennis. Will he hold it for yellow? The Netherlands boasts over 12,000 miles of bike paths, and when not on them, cyclists can park the bikes at the Utrecht Central Station. I know, I've been there today. The current bike park can hold 2,200 bicycles and is being expanded, so that by 2018 it'll hold 12,500 bikes, and this will make it the world's largest covered bike park. Cycling, believe me, is Holland. The arrival of Thibaut Pinot racing up, and it's not a bad time. He's done pretty well. He's got a little way to go to the line at the moment. He's sitting on 5th place at the moment. Quintana did just over 15 minutes, and it looks as though Pinot has done a great ride here because Pino slipped a little bit slower than Quintana. But not a big loss, but a slight loss. But that's been a big effort by Pino because he's not a time trialist. And remember, the big stars for the long-term future to Paris have got to try and match each other in the time trial today and not worry about who wins. Well, Lugo Westra is on course. Rowan Dennis is the man on top. Is there anybody who can challenge him? Probably only Martin and Cancellara. There's still to go. As we look around the beauty here, just checking around the route here. Nobody is piercing the leaderboard at all. And the man who should be in the start gate about now, just coming up to 5 minutes past 4, is Adam Hansen. He's due to go at 4 minutes past 4. And he is the man who's starting his 19th three-week tour and his 12th consecutively. Absolutely incredible. The man from Queensland. He comes from Cairns on the Barrier Reef, where it's always hot. So he'll be at home today, Paul.
He will very much be at home. It's a hot, humid day here in Utrecht this afternoon. I suppose Adam Hansen, before he became famous for riding so many Grand Tours, became famous for being the winner of the Crocodile Trophy way up in the north of Australia, a long-term mountain bike race.
I suspect he made it snappy. But we'll move on as we see Lugo Westra here, as he comes up towards the line now. And as we expect him, Westra, he's challenging. It's still a little way down the line. There's an awful lot of riders packed into that 15.25 minutes, so he should slip down the list a little bit here, and he's well away from Rowan Dennis. But again, another man who's pretty good at the racing against the clock is not remotely approaching the time of the BMC rider, Rowan Dennis.
Well, interesting looking at Louis Westra there, Phil, because as I looked at him out on the course, he did not look like a man who was going fast. He stopped the clock there in 11th, but again, 45 seconds adrift from the time of the Australian rider, Rowan Dennis. That is a benchmark that stood there for a long, long time.
Well, this is Sepp van Mark we're looking at the moment, a Gate One Day Classics rider, not a noted time trialist, but like all of the riders, has to go for gold when he can. Van Mark pushes on. And still to come is the American rider, Andrew Talansky, one of only 3 Americans in the race. He seems to be refining his form, and there's his bike, by the way, as he's the new American time trial champion, covered in the Stars and Stripes on July the 4th. He's ready to ride, and let's hope he can produce the goods here in this time trial, because Andrew had a rough start to the year, and it looks as though he's finding his form again. Let's hope so. Well, back onto the road here as we continue to push on. This is Adam Yates, the British rider on the Australian Orica Green Edge. As we've seen Adam ride, this is his twin, just a few minutes apart at birth, and they ride the Tour de France together for the first time. Big moment for the Yates family, that's for sure.
Well, it certainly is. When I talked to the PR man before the start of the race, I said, how are we going to tell them apart? It's easy today because they're in the individual time trial, so we know what time they start. But in the race, I was told that Simon will be wearing white glasses, Adam will be wearing coloured glasses. But today, it's a visor for aerodynamics.
Well, I hope they don't change the mind in the morning, because we have a mass start road race to Zeeland tomorrow, and it's going to be a very flat ride, but very windy. And it makes for great racing in this part of Holland for sure. And the Dutch do it better than no one else. And in the start at the moment, as this is Michael Rogers here, had a great win last year in the Tour de France, and he took a bow on the line, which was amazing, because he'd been trying for years to get a victory, and that's why he took the bow. He's about to start. 3 times the world time trial champion.
Well, as you mentioned, Phil, Michael Rogers preparing this Tour de France in the Giro d'Italia. And last last year. What a successful Tour of Italy he had. He won 2 stages last year, and phenomenal stages as well. And on top of that, he won himself a stage in the Tour de France as well.
And it was in the mountains too, if I remember rightly. It was on the road into Luchon, and he got away from the field. This, by the way, is riding his 11th Tour, and he took a bow, if I remember rightly, in Luchon, and he deserved that win. But, you know, after all those years of trying, last year was an incredibly good season for Michael Rogers. And here to ride alongside Alberto Contador, and Contador wanted him in the team. He's strong. Michael Rogers underway now as we continue. And Nicholas Roach, the son of Stephen Roach, one of only 2 riders in the world to have won the big triple crown of the world title, the Tour de France and the Giro in the same year. Roach underway. The departure of Stephen Roach now as he gets off that starting ramp. His dad's around somewhere. I was with his father in London just a couple of days ago. Looking forward to Nicholas being named in the squad.
Sorry, I think you said Stephen Roach as he rolled down the ramp. Don't worry, because this is Nicholas Roach. It was his birthday yesterday, by the way. 31 years of age on the 3rd of July. I wonder if he'll get a birthday present here this afternoon.
Paul, that reminds me of a story, because is it his birthday? And he's 31.
Yes.
Well, when he was born, Stephen came up to me and I said, Stephen, what was the baby, male or female? He said, well, we called it Nicola. I said, yeah, but Nicola in French is also the same for a man and a woman. I said, is it male or female? He says, it's a boy. And now 31 years on, he's in the Tour de France.
Yeah, well,
and his dad's not very far away from us right now.
He is not very far away. The French always call him Nicolas, but nowadays he's adopted much more of an Anglophone pronunciation of his voice. It's actually Nicholas Roach these days, and he's very happy to fly the flag for Ireland.
He most certainly is, and he's underway again for Team Sky here in the Tour de France, the team he's now joined. As we continue to watch Michael Rogers here, might be a bit short to the distance for Michael today, former world time trial champion on 3 occasions. Still nobody, Sepp van Mark, about the only riders to get anywhere near Rowan Dennis. He's gone through the check in 12th place, giving 13 seconds off Rowan Dennis's time. Well, one man who might have some inkling into this, Jens, do you think that this ride by Rowan Dennis, which let's not forget is the fastest time trial we've ever seen in the Tour de France, but is it good enough to hold off those 2 great time trialists, Cancellara and Tony Martin?
It is an astonishing performance, I must admit, a lot faster than we all expected and predicted. But I think the big guns are still to come, and I think he might finish on a podium with that performance. But winning, I think there's still a few of the favorites coming, and they are ready as well.
Wow, now you predicted earlier today to me that Peter Sagan was going to win the time trial. Do you still think he will?
Well, I predicted him already before, so how can I pull back from my own pick? Yep, I stick with my opinion here. I stick with Peter.
Good man. Well done, Jens. Well, we're looking here under this little thing under the saddle there. That'll be dimension data. That's the collecting all the data out on course. So all the riders have got them on the saddle, and we'll try to show you more of that over the next 3 weeks. There it is. Marco Haller, first man in riding the Tour de France. We go back to the start house. There is Tom Dumoulin. Won both time trial stages of the recent Tour de Suisse, flopped the time trial championship the other week. He missed the podium, he finished 4th, but maybe it was too close to the Tour de Suisse. Now he's had a rest. He could be the man to beat, and Holland are hoping he is. And the sun continues to shine over the time trial opening day of the Tour de France. We're watching Marco Haller in his first Tour de France here, and settling in before a huge crowd as the shadows start to fall over Utrecht at the moment. No change overall. Michael Rogers, I don't think he's going to upset the top 10 in the race at the moment as he continues on. Even though his average speed is being shown at around 51 kilometers an hour, that's about 32 miles an hour, he's not even getting in the top 15 riders on the course. This is proving to be a very, very quick time trial course indeed. And the man who so far sits on the fastest ever time recorded in a time trial is Rowan Dennis. He's sitting on best time with an average speed of 55.45 kilometers an hour, and that no rider has ever gone quicker than that in the history of the Tour de France time trial.
No, it's a phenomenal performance, but it sets the benchmark, and maybe the disadvantage that Rowan Dennis has is that he started in the early part of the afternoon. Now, everybody's had a long time. They've had an hour and a half to get themselves the information, to get the checkpoints and the times that Rowan Dennis did early on in the course, and they know exactly how to measure themselves against the Australians' performance.
Now, Michael Rogers has gone through the check, only 12 seconds slower than Rowan Dennis. We're looking, picked him up out on course again now. Now everybody has largely lost time from that checkpoint. We'll see if Michael's kept something in the tank to be able to pick it up.
Well, if you want to look at the face of experience, you're looking at it right now, because Mick Rogers, as I said, 3 times world time trial champion. I think in the last couple of years he's found a rekindling of his career, because those 2 stage victories in the Tour of Italy last year and the stage victory in the Tour de France really gave him a lot of pleasure, because they were very special victories for Michael Rogers. And you know, if anybody knows how to ride a time trial, well, it's Mick Rogers. He knows how you have to start, how you have to hold something in the engine for the final few kilometers, and he knows how to lift it when there's a possibility of a dream finale.
Rogers looks pretty cool there right now. As Roger races under another walkway, specially erected for the Tour de France today. And under 1 kilometer goes Marco Haller. Let's rejoin Steve Perino inside the race. Steve.
Well, Phil, I'm actually just behind the start, where everyone is still wearing ice packs on their chest. Now, about the speed of Rowan Dennis, I checked in with the director again, who was following me. He said in the straightaways, in order to get that 55-kilometer average, he said he was going well into the 60s. So 60 kilometers an hour, we're talking about over 37 miles an hour to reach that average. That is some power.
It is amazing, and he said he concentrated on riding in this time trial and doing his best, and so far he's sitting by his guns here. It's a fabulous time, but we'll see if it survives right to the end. Well, our old friend Filippo Pozzato here of the Lamprey team is back in the Tour de France here. He's a high liver and he enjoys a flamboyant lifestyle, and now he's going to show us how he time trials.
Well, he hasn't ridden the Tour de France since 2009, so quite a strange return for him. Haller not going to light the race on fire this afternoon, but he certainly lit the Tour of the Fields on fire, because he was a little bit of a surprise winner in the overall classification there, and he just recently won himself the National Road Racing Championships of Austria.
Yes, I saw him win his very first bike race as a pro. It was in 2012 in the October. Now, there's the smiles, by the way, of Rowan Dennis. He's still happy. The baby-faced man from Adelaide. They know what it's like to produce champions in Adelaide, South Australia, because they've had Stuart O'Grady from there as well. But just to complete the story on Marco Haller, he won the 4th day of the Tour of Beijing, and he gave such a scream of delight when he beat them in the sprint, and I had no idea who he was. Well, we know now as he takes the start in his first Tour de France. Bauke Mollema underway now. Another man who hopes to be a top 6-7 finisher in the Tour this year.
And again, one of those riders from Trek Factory Racing, sporting that little flashing red light on the back. It's all about safety when you ride bikes these days. But you know what? If you have an accident in Holland between a car and the bicycle always has the right of way.
Well, they recognise a Dutchman when they see him, that's for sure. I think you'll find there's a camera in that black backlight that's flashing as well. So we get a nice picture of the mechanic behind. Well, you can't relax if you're Dutch in Holland on the Tour de France now, because you just got to show the crowd what you do in your spare time.
Well, about 6 minutes time, Phil. I think the decibels will rise, because it will be the start of Tom Dumoulin, who's had a fantastic season so far this year, and a little bit of a surprise to not see him win the time trial championships. A little bit of fatigue in his legs from the Tour of Switzerland, but he will be buoyed by this crowd around here.
So as Bauke Mollema is listening to the crowd in his ears here, and we're waiting now in the start house. There's Pierre Roland. We expect to do a ride for France this year as he gets in the start house. This man knows his biggest moment in his career is just minutes away. Tom Dumoulin, who wants to win this time trial for Holland. And can he do it?
You're watching the Tour right now, so you're not thinking about tires. If you were, all you'd need to know is TireRack.com. Check those tires later. Let's focus on the Peloton and those two-tired vehicles. TireRack.com. Find, deliver, install.
Well, there it is, the crowd, the day has come, the moment has come. Tom Dumoulin carries all the hopes of Holland today.
10 secondes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop.
The man in black, Tom Dumoulin of the Giant Alpecin team, knows that the whole of Holland believes he can do it. He's coming off a Tour de Switzerland a couple of weeks ago where he won both time trial stages. Look at the way he just clipped the corner there as he continues now. He completely flopped in the Dutch time trial championship. He missed the podium, finished fourth. We think because he was tired from Switzerland. So Tom Dumoulin sets the pace, Paul. There's no time to think now. Everybody is shouting for this one man. They don't produce many great time trials at world level in the Tour de France. But today, the race starts in Utrecht. Only this guy, I think, from Holland, is capable of victory. Well, he's settled in now. There's no change at all in the top 10 visitors to the checkpoint so far. It's still Dennis at the finish, followed by Josh van Emden, Castroviejo, 2 Dutchmen in the top 4 places. Well, 3 Dutchmen in the top 5 with a particularly good ride by Robert Hessing. But this man, if he rides the form we know he has, could rival Rowan Dennis's record ride so far.
Well, you talk about pressure, Phil. 24 years of age, the revelation of last year's season in the individual time trial. He's had a great approach to the Tour de France, apart from not winning the National Time Trial Championships, where he was suffering from a little bit of a sore throat. But I don't understand the pressure he must be going through with this crowd.
They're just reaching over those barriers to try and touch you. Well, this is Tom Dumoulin in action, and this is what he had to say at the press interviews earlier.
Well, Tom, the time trial, your specialty, to open up the Tour de France in your home country. Be honest, how long have you been thinking about this day?
Well, that sums it up. It's really, really special, and we've been working for last winter, actually. We started really working towards this goal, and now it's almost happening, so I'm pretty excited.
Can you express in any way what it would mean to not only get the victory, but take that first yellow jersey in front of all of the Dutch fans?
Yeah, like I said, that will be an amazing feeling, but right now I'm actually focusing on just the things that I need to do, and then this feeling will come afterwards, and then I will see how it is, but if I get the victory. But for now, I'm just focusing on the TT itself, and I don't try to think a lot about what's going to happen or whatever.
Yes, well, I'll tell you what, Tom Dumoulin has won 3 time trials this year. He won the 6-stage time trial of the Tour of the Basque Country, and then he won those 2 stages in the Tour de Suisse. And right behind him on the motorbike is our Steve Perino inside the race. Steve.
Well, Phil, I would have loved to hear what Dumoulin said in that interview, but I cannot hear anything. It is absolutely thunderous. There's a few times where you pass under bridges photos like winning gold medal is. Yeah.
Well, Steve, sorry, but if it's any consolation, we can't hear you, I'm afraid, because the crowd is such... everybody is screaming in the ears of Tom Dumoulin, and indeed Steve Perino is just behind him. Just look at this crowd and listen to the noise. Well, these are the most riders in this year's Tour de France, and the Netherlands ranked #2 behind the French with 20 riders in the race, but all eyes are on this one for the moment. Well, if noise makes winners, then Tom Dumoulin is going to win, because they are shouting themselves hoarse here. And it's fair to say that Utrecht people just love racing, but you can't blame them for cheering one of their own. He was the time trial champion last year. That's when we started to notice Tom Dumoulin. This year he completely fluffed it, finished 4th, but his other performances, 3 time trial wins this year in big races. He knows he can do it. But then he didn't know he was going to have to chase a record ride in the Tour de France to do it, which he has now. Good heavens, he must have left the course. It's gone quiet down there. Oh, no, it hasn't.
There is not a single place out on the road here where there is a gap in the crowd of 2, 3, 4 deep, and they will know now that this man, the man who represents Holland here this afternoon, forget the fact that he's representing a sponsored team. He's representing Holland here in the very heart of Utrecht, the 4th largest city in Holland.
I'd like to know its population right now. I'd put it #1. 5.4 kilometres done for Tom Dumoulin. 8.3 kilometres to go. We'll get the check time very shortly.
Well, Phil, if anybody is going to knock Rowan Dennis off the top end of the leaderboard here this afternoon, this is the first man who will have a serious crack at it. He's going around these corners. He's around about a minute away from the time check, I would guess.
Yep. He's concentrated on doing this since last winter when they announced the course here in Utrecht. He said, that time trial is for me, and from this moment on, I am going to train for it. And that's what he's done. And he seems to have not had his confidence knocked by not getting a medal in the recent time trial championships. He did win both time trials in Switzerland in a major race where he beat, by the way, Fabian Cancellara, who will ride later today. This will be the first challenge to Rowan Dennis, and in about 30 seconds we'll know what that challenge is like, because the clock will give us his time. Rowan Dennis reached the checkpoint in 7 minutes and 28 seconds. We are very close as we count down. 7.25 minutes has gone by. He's got to get there very quickly now. 7:26, he's got to be there. Oh dear, I'm not sure where they're stopping the clock, so we'll have to wait and see. It looks as though he may not be there yet. It's not come on screen. We don't know what... I think the check might be just around here. Still waiting. It's not there. There's the check. He's down. There's the check. Under the Festina. He's lost a bit of ground. He's gone through, but he's gone through with only the 3rd best time. But he is only 1 second slower than Rowan Dennis.
And let's not forget, Rowan Dennis put down the foundations of his fast time in the last part of the course. You've got to start with a little bit of economy and then give it everything in the last few kilometres.
Well, that is incredible. It's got to happen over the second half, as Rowan Dennis proved against Josh Emden. Can he do it? We'll take a short break, and then we're going to find out. See you in a moment. The minions have lived to serve the most despicable of masters. Join Kevin, Stuart and Bob on their thrilling new journey to find their next evil leader. Minions, only in theatres Friday. Well, Dumoulin is out on course. He's at 3 kilometres to go. He's gone through the check 1 second slower than Rowan Dennis. And the crowd, if they can make the difference, is it worth a second, all this cheering? I think not just the whole of Utrecht, but the whole of Holland is cramming those barriers right now as they try to drive this man to the 1 second margin.
Well, Phil, as he throws his machine around that corner, I wonder if inscribed on his brain right now is that time. 14 minutes and 56 seconds. And is he thinking about that yellow smoke, turning it into a yellow jersey?
Just look at the crowd leaning over those barriers. Thank heavens they haven't fallen down. As the clock hits 12:56, he has 3 minutes to be in across that finish line. His minute man's right there.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, just looking at the distance to go, 2 kilometres, and the time that he's got to do it, this is going to be a pretty impressive beating. The best time is 14 minutes and 56 seconds, and the only man to go inside of 15 minutes so far is Rowan Dennis, but this is very, very fast.
And he's lined up there. That's Machado in front there, the former champion of Portugal. He's pulling back for 1 minute. He's dreamt this course. He's gone through it wheel by wheel in his sleep since the last winter. There's Machado in the distance. As he wheels him in, it's going to be desperately close, that's for sure. Remember, he'd gone through the check. He comes to the last kilometre, Paul. And, you know, as you always say, he's going to need a full minute to get down to the finishing line. It's going to be desperately close.
He cannot cover a kilometre, Phil, in 60 seconds. It means he would have to go in excess of 60 kilometres an hour. The only chance he will have is to be able to keep an eye on the rider in front of him. Rowan Dennis, on the other hand, I think must be really wondering what is going on here this afternoon. It's going to be ever so close on the line, but I'm not sure that he's got enough time. If all the time checks we're getting are correct, I don't think he's going to do it.
I'll predict he'll lose by 4 seconds, but you know, it's time to remind you, Paul, that in fact the mechanics of Rowan Dennis said that he did ride in places at 60 kilometres an hour. He lines up, the clock counts down, he drives on. The time to beat is the Australian Rowan Dennis, 14:56. Machado needs to swing wide. That was worth half a second. He's taken the inside, and Dumoulin heads towards the finish. 5, 4, 3, 2. He's not going to do it, Paul. The time passes by. The challenge is done. Now, can Dumoulin cross the line and get himself into second slot? And the answer is yes, he can. But he's 8 3/4 seconds too slow.
Wow, that was quite an amazing ride there by Tom Dumoulin, but he faded in the latter part of the race, and Rowan Dennis is still in the top spot.
That guy's all smiles. He takes it just in his stride. Oh, well, he didn't beat me.
Well, we've forgotten, Phil, in all of that excitement, that starting 3 minutes behind Tom Dumoulin is a former world hour recorder from Great Britain, Alex Dowsett, who will come up to the line. I'm just having a quick look down.
He's already gone. We're waiting for him at the checkpoint because we're on Dutch territory. We're watching pictures in Holland. The cameras stayed with that rider for the whole length of his ride. Dowsett is underway, and he's gone through the check with the 5th best time, 3 seconds slower than Dumoulin and 4 seconds slower than Dennis. So we'll see if he can make that. This is Raimundas Navadauskas now out on course, the champion of Lithuania.
A little bit of time to catch up.
It's gone a bit flat now, hasn't the crowd suddenly have gone for the bread and cheese, whatever they do in Holland.
Well, let's not forget there's another local, Alejandro Valverde.
Well, he was last year the time trial champion of Spain.
And this year he's a national road race champion of Spain, but he has the Spanish national time trial champion on his squad, and that, of course, is Castroviejo.
Well, take your hat off to Tom Dumoulin, because he is up against one of the classiest time trialists in the world in Rowan Dennis, who's been a great track cyclist, world champion on the track, and he only failed by a couple of seconds there. 8 seconds. Now we're catching up with Alex Dowsett on course now, because this is the champion of Great Britain. Won his title just recently in Lincoln. And now Alex Dowsett, a former world hour record holder, and people feel that he could have gone quicker. He just hadn't got the experience to push home. He could have gone further in that world hour record. It was a fantastic performance, and he did it in Manchester when he went for the record. And I tell you what, Alex Dowsett, one of the few riders in the world who might one day be able to return and take on the new record, which is now held by Sir Bradley Wiggins.
Well, Sir Bradley Wiggins holds that record, but I have to say, Phil, watching Alex Dowsett in the world hour record that he took, he looked so comfortable throughout the whole of his 1 hour attempt to ride the furthest distance that you can in an hour. He also said that he was dreaming about winning this race. He slimmed off a little bit of weight. In fact, he's lost 4 kilograms since he broke the world hour record. And I think that will get transformed into a lot of power. This is him coming into the finishing straight.
Let's see what he can do. He's already not, he's inferior to Rowan Dennis. So Dennis sits proud again now. As Dowsett heads up towards the finish, he's going to rival Tom Dumoulin, but I think he might be dropping behind Dumoulin's time now, as he goes down to 3rd place at 15:11, and now 4th and slipping away. So it's not been the great moment for Alex Dowsett, but he's in the Tour de France, and that's the big moment for him. And as he comes up towards the line, I can tell you now that Tony Martin, the next challenger to Rowan Dennis, is getting ready to ride out of that start house. But Dowsett crosses the line, and a very, very creditable 7th place for the British champion. Now to the face of Tony Martin. 3 times the world time trial champion. On his day, he's unbeatable, but he knows now he's starting against the fastest time trial ever recorded in a Tour de France, and a long time ago already. Have conditions changed? The most popular German cyclist, Tony Martin. Bradley Wiggins beat him in the 2012 Olympic Games. He wasn't happy about that. Bradley Wiggins beat him in the time trial as well in Ponferrada last year. He wasn't happy about that either. But now, can he make a nice revenge here and take on Rowan Dennis's time?
Well, he's wearing the jersey of the champion of Germany in the individual time trial for the 5th time he got that title.
Well, Tony Martin has done it all before here at the Tour de France. He's won time trial stages of the Tour de France in 2014, for example. He's also won the road race stages as well. And he's run in all sorts of conditions, so the sun or the rain seems to be all the same for him. He's a specialist man who takes his opportunities when they come. He can win the time trials or he can win the road races, but he's always looking for the chance when he can do it. And I think today Tony Martin will be inspired by the situation here. In all, he's won 4 stages of the Tour de France, and he's won a couple of those. Have been 3 of them, I think, has been time trial victories from memory. This is Leopold Koenig coming home. Another man who could present Sky with some great support for their leader in the mountains.
Well, we're getting right down to the big names. Leopold Koenig really became a revelation to us in the Amgen Tour of California a little while back. But now he's becoming a serious player as part of this Team Sky train, especially in the mountains.
13th position for him. That's not really what he's meant to do. That's a great ride. He's a good all-rounder. Looking down now at Tony Martin here. Once again, the champion of Germany. Back into the start house, Alexander Kristoff. 18 victories to his credit this year, but not time trials, road races. He is the man with the most wins, and he's the man who's going to cross swords with Mark Cavendish maybe as early as tomorrow on the sprint down to Zeeland. As we go back up the road to see Tony Martin in action. He won the time trial in Grenoble in 2011. He then won the time trial at Mont Saint-Michel in 2013. Then he won the time trial in Périgueux in 2014. But having seen what Rowan Dennis has done, if he beats him today and wins this time trial, he will have done it in the fastest average speed ever seen. Last year's winner, he was dominant last year because all the favourites had crashed out by stage 10, but don't take that away from him. He was already in the lead. Vincenzo Nibali. And another man, and this is Jens Voigt's secret weapon, is Peter Sagan. He believes can deliver the time trial of his life today, setting himself up for a possible yellow jersey tomorrow. Let's find out later. Welcome back. Let's start off and have a look at the Giant Bikes stage summary of this opening day's time trial. The Grand Depart, sixth time in Tour history. The Tour has started in the Netherlands. Daniel Tekla-Heimanot was the first Eritrean rider ever to start the Tour de France. He went out number 1. Rowan Dennis has produced the goods and leads the race with 40 minutes 56 in a record time for a time trial. Waiting for the contenders to start, the big favourites, Froome, Contador, Nibali, all still to go. That's the Giant Bikes race summary. Now looking here at the riders on course, back to Tony Martin, who is out on course. No indication yet. He hasn't arrived at the first check. We're expecting to be up amongst that leaderboard, but where? That is the big question. This man has been the king of time trialing these last few years. Back at the start house, we should be... there's the flags, and there is the man. So Peter Sagan is all set to ride. 3 times for the last 3 years, in fact, the points winner, the green jersey. Very popular man. And Jens Voigt's favourite to ride well today in the time trial.
10 secondes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The determination on Peter's face there as he came out of that start house. Rolls into the course now. She's got to do a pretty good time trial to win this one, though. Well, going out the start house just behind him, but on his motorbike, Steve Perino inside the race. Steve.
Well, Phil, I'm just behind the team car in the back seat. The owner of the team, Mr. touching on anyone who's been following some on Peter Sagan earlier in the back.
Yeah, sorry, Steve. The technical bits there not working too well, but he's obviously in the car there with Mr. Tinkoff himself watching Peter Sagan go. Coming up to the finish here is Matthias Brandl, who was also a world hour record holder towards the end of last year. Done a good ride, but he's not good enough to take the flowers away from Rowan Dennis just at the moment. As the clock counts him down, he's going outside, but it's still a good ride nonetheless as he races up towards the line. And Brandl comes up towards the line here, another former hour record holder, as indeed was Rowan Dennis, but for Brandl, he's in 5th place for him. So at the checkpoint now, Tony Martin has gone through 4 seconds slower than the leader, but 3 seconds slower than Rowan Dennis. The challenge is on.
The challenge is on, and let's not forget how experienced Tony Martin is, whether it's the World Championships or the German Time Trial Championships. He is a master of the effort against the clock, and that's what he will be doing. He'll be trying to lift his pace in the final few kilometres. He knows the time to beat. The time on the clock is the only time registered inside of 15 minutes, 14 minutes and 56 seconds.
Jens, we're looking at Tony Martin. You know this guy better than any of us, but can he make up that difference now in what's left of this time trial?
Well, I believe Tony has a plan. He has the advantage of knowing the times, to the split times. Probably his team car followed other riders of his team, so he has split times on every corner of the road. He will know exactly where he has to go, how fast he has to go, and I think he has enough left to actually turn it around and gain this 4 seconds somewhere. Once he got his big diesel engine warmed up, he's just like rolling. So I believe he got a fair chance of making it.
Well, the way he's riding these corners, he's certainly not losing any time at the moment, but 3 seconds, nobody, Paul, has achieved that throughout the whole of the day. Everybody has lost time on the journey from that checkpoint.
Yeah, but just to go back to Jens there, Jens, we talked about this time trial. We looked at the corners and thought they were technical, but once you put the barriers up, they're not that technical, these corners. That probably gives the advantage to Tony Martin, I think, over Fabian Cancellara. Do you agree?
Yes, indeed, it looks like the corners are actually a lot easier to take than we thought by looking at the profile, looking at the road book. He did a good job here in securing the road and putting the barriers in a way that riders can take the corners in a best possible angle. So, yes, it does look like a very fast course, and the times that these riders do, they just confirm that it is a very fast course.
Well, this massive crowd enjoying the hot sun of Utrecht here. The time trial is still finely poised, but what will Tony Martin do? Back to the start house here. This is Lars Boehme here now overnight. He gave a low cortisol reading, which under the rules of the Riders' Union, if you like, the movement for credible cycling, he should not have started the tour. Under the rules of the World Body, they said no problems with us, so he starts the tour. Now, I can tell you, this man has been training after midnight on this course with a police escort in the dark. He knows it inside out, and he wants to win today. And that's probably why he said, I'm not interested in what the movement for credible cycling says. I'm riding the Tour de France. Now, TJ Van Garderen is looking very slick in that new hairstyle. Remember, it's his teammate, Rowan Dennis, who leads at the moment. He won't be aiming at that. He'll be aiming at this man, Alberto Contador. He wants to stay close to Alberto in this time trial. And let's not forget last year's defending champion, Vincenzo Nibali. These three boys want to finish split by absolutely nothing. Will they be? We'll see you in a moment. The streets of Utrecht are lined with fans here to celebrate the start of the 2015 Tour de France. Current leader Rowan Dennis broke a Tour de France record, setting the fastest average speed ever ridden in a time trial. But with the yellow jersey up for grabs, the BMC rider still has some world-class competition left to start. The time trial specialists are raring to take home this significant stage win, while the Tour's top overall contenders know this will be their first chance to put time into the rivals. Find out who will wear the first yellow jersey. It's next. Well, as you rejoin us, this is Tony Martin riding up towards the finish now. It is going to be desperately close. There's the time of Rowan Dennis, 14 minutes 50. It's gone. Tony Martin is not going to beat Rowan Dennis. The Australian stays on top. Only Fabian Cancellara will have a final say now as Martin comes in second place. And look at that. Oh boy, Rowan Dennis, he stays cool under pressure, doesn't he? But going back out on course and picking up now with Peter Sagan. Well, that was a real significant challenge to the time of Rowan Dennis. And Rowan Dennis passed with flying colours. And I really think now there's only one man can challenge him. Well, Paul, that was an incredible effort. We're looking down at Jerome Koppel at the moment from the helicopter here. Well, with all the significance, Jerome's riding his first Tour de France, will not be getting mixed up in this great battle to win this opening time trial. The prize is significant. It's a maillot jaune and a yellow jersey to take off on the roads tomorrow as we continue the Tour de France in Holland. Well, Tony Martin didn't recover, and it seems everybody has that trouble. Alberto Contador will not be looking to win the race today, but he'll be looking to finish very, very closely to Chris Froome, Nibali and Quintana.
Well, we talk about these short, violent efforts as we look here at Alberto Contador preparing. Phil, it's very much like the start of a Formula One race. You've got to get to the starting grid. You've got to get to the starting position with a very hot engine. Andrew Talansky, though, in the Stars and Stripes, a newly crowned American national time trial champion. And he knows how important this time trial is to him.
On this 4th of July, Andrew Talansky is set to roll. Zelansky is out of the start house. Now let's see what he was thinking 48 hours ago, because we spoke with him at the team presentation.
I feel very excited. I mean, obviously this is the third tour. All have started. I only finished one last year. Obviously didn't go so well, but for whatever reason this year I feel a lot less stress. Feel a lot more confident, despite not having maybe results-wise quite as good of a lead-in as I did last year. But I feel like I put in the work and I'm at the best level I've been at all year, and I'm looking forward to getting to show that on the road. I'm really excited. It's the first time I'm going to wear the Stars and Stripes jersey and get to line up with that on the 4th of July to start the Tour de France. Regardless of exactly how the day goes on the road, that's going to be very, very exciting.
Yes, a fairy tale indeed for Andrew Zelansky. He's underway. This man's about to finish, Alexander Kristoff, and he's off the list here as he comes up. So, Alexander Kristoff, 54th place, not important. He might well cross the swords tomorrow with Mark Cavendish. But in about a minute's time, and might be slightly less, we're going to see Fabian Cancellara get himself into the start house. And then that, in my opinion, as we pick up on Geraint Thomas here, I think Cancellara is the only man left capable now of beating Rowan Dennis.
Well, you could be right there, as Cancellara, 4 times world champion at the discipline, climbs up into the starting gate. But what about Michael Kwiatkowski? He's a rider who so far this year has put in some very impressive performances. He's one of the youngsters on the way up, and he could create a bit of a surprise. But I've tipped this man to win, Phil, Fabian Cancellara, because of experience, and because of the fact that I think he's on ascending form coming up to the Tour de France.
Fabian Cancellara has taken the start. He is a prologue specialist in the Tour de France. He knows it, but there's a question mark on his form. He's coming back from serious injury in the Classics. For Fabian Cancellara, you know, it all began so well in 2004 because he won the prologue there. And that was in Liège, where we go not far away in a couple of days' time. And he kept the yellow jersey for a while. Then in 2007, he won in London. And what a crowd that was. I remember that like it was only yesterday. He is a prologue specialist, Paul. This isn't technically a prologue, but the fact is, it's the first day of the Tour de France. And he's the only man left who can possibly beat a perfect day for the Australian Dennis.
Well, it wasn't a prologue, Phil, when he won in Monaco either, because it was around about 13.5 to 14 kilometres, a very difficult course. People said it didn't suit Fabian Cancellara, but he is a man of the big occasions. And I think, you know, the fact that he had that very nasty injury in the first part of the season, he's battled his way back. He fought his way through the Tour of Switzerland, was beaten in the time trial there, but I think, you know, he knows how to rise to the occasion.
And that, I think, might be to his standing here. He was beaten by Tom Dumoulin a couple of weeks ago in both time trial stages of the Tour of Switzerland. Dumoulin, at the moment, sits in 3rd place and 8 seconds slower than Rowan Dennis. And Dennis himself will know. This man is the only man now who can stop him becoming the next Australian to wear the yellow jersey. And if memory serves you right, we've had 7 wearers of the yellow jersey from Australia. Phil Anderson, Stuart O'Grady, Brad McGee, Robin McEwen, Cadell Evans and Simon Gerrans. Are we about to see the next one? And even when you come to Switzerland, which is a little bit away from Holland, the crowd are still behind the sport. No check. This is the man that started, was the cause of the rumours that started to spread like wildfire a couple of years ago. That time trialists were using small engines in the bicycle tubing. And Cancellara responded by saying, yes, I've got 2 engines in both legs. So as Cancellara steams along these crowd line straightaways here, we also spoke with Fabian a couple of days ago. Here's what he had to say there.
Well, Fabian, you are certainly no stranger to the time trials at the Tour de France. How does this one in particular set up for you?
Well, there's a lot of different things they're coming in. I mean, of course, we start again on non-French ground, and all the wins I had been not on French ground. So I want to keep going this direction, but of course it's going to be another one special one because it's 13K. It's not as short as the others, but I mean, yeah, I'm good confident. I'm looking forward. I have a lot of experience with this situation to be a favorite or to be in this situation. So, yeah, I go full gas and we'll see what comes. I mean, 100%, and then we see on the end what comes, because we have some good riders as well. We have Ron Dennis, Tom Dumoulin, we have Tony Martin. I mean, these all good riders on this kind of distance. The parcours will be fast, but on the end, it's a race against the clock, and yeah, that's how it is.
Yes, well, he knows what he's got to do. He's a family man from Basel in Switzerland. As we see Peter Sagan crash the line, he didn't do it. 17th place for Peter Sagan. Back out on course with Geraint Thomas. He's a very good time trialist and only just lost the Tour of Switzerland by 5 seconds. As Thomas comes up towards the line, it's another ride which is going to slip away as you approach the finish here for Geraint Thomas. He didn't produce the goods in the last day time trial to win the Tour of Switzerland. In the end, he was just 5 seconds too slow. But Geraint's going to be a most important part of the Sky team as this race unfolds chapter by chapter over the next 3 weeks. Thomas comes up towards the line now, and the clock will plummet quite quickly as he approaches the line. And he hits it, and he's in 11th place.
Pretty impressive ride for Geraint Thomas, second in the Tour of Switzerland. And as you said, Phil, I think the important thing for him is concentrating on what he can do for Chris Froome. For me, what's going to be interesting is when we get this time check on Fabian Cancellara, that'll be the first real indication as to whether or not he can rival Rowan Dennis.
The big question now is, will this man from Switzerland, Fabian Cancellara, spoil a perfect day for Australia, so many thousands of miles away? Cancellara continues to use those big thighs which have pumped their way to some of the most famous victories. He has been 4 times the world champion. He's been Olympic champion. He actually doesn't ride all the time trials now because he just wins them. But today, if he wins this time trial, he has to win at a record average speed, and he knows it. But look, at the moment, Paul, he's above that average speed, 56 kilometers an hour.
Well, as you said, I think a little bit earlier on, Phil, if there's anybody in this race remaining to start, the big challenge will come from Fabian Cancellara. I tipped him as a possible winner here this afternoon, and Jens, you must be pretty nervous down there because you've known Fabian Cancellara for many, many years. Does he look like he's going to create the victory this afternoon, Jens?
Well, let's wait for the split time. He looks fast, he looks like he found his rhythm, and he looks like he's producing enough power to actually beat that time. But let's wait for the split time, and we can talk after that. But it does look good.
But Jens, is he coming back to form? Because Tom Dumoulin beat him in both time trials in the Tour of Switzerland. Have we any reason to suspect that, that Fabian is now totally recovered?
I believe so. Fabian is his shape is coming up. Tom Dumoulin might be still a little tired from the Tour de Suisse because he had to really give it everything he had to secure an overall title there. But Fabian is just coming up, so yes, he looks ready.
Yes, just a quick one, because you did mention to us that Fabian Cancellara did not ride the Swiss National Championships because he felt he needed a little bit more recovery from the Tour of Switzerland for the Tour de France. Do you think that could be the secret today?
Well, it might be that he might look like a genius for taking that decision to, okay, I'm not going to do this race. I'm just going to focus on that one big event coming up. I'm going to finish on the Polo Tour de France. So let's see if it plays out for him.
Oh, well, there was a double flick there by Romain Bardet as he came in, but he got it right in the end. He's not going to challenge the leaderboard. He's way down. But this is a man for the longer term.
Well, it certainly is, and I have to give credit to him, Phil, last night, because he spent 20 minutes or so before dinner sitting down and talking to us about his hopes for the Tour de France this year and what he wants to do a lot of the time. He wants to read. He's not going to go for social media. He doesn't want to know what everybody else's time trial performances are going to be. He's just concentrating on the mountains. That's not a great start for him, but, you know, watch out for that kid in the mountains.
And this is Lars Boom right up behind him for 1 minute here, Lars Boom, but he will be disappointed with that. He crosses the line in 20th place, and perhaps all the controversy overnight has got to him there. TJ Van Garderen in the start house now. Best young rider and finished 5th in the 2012 Tour de France. This is a man who is really fired up for this event. He won the Amgen Tour of California a couple of years ago, didn't ride it this year. He wants this race.
Well, Phil, talk about the American rider with the Dutch name. They will be loving him around the course here. But Fabian Cancellara has just gone through with the 4th best time at half distance, 2 seconds adrift. He's
but
throwing
only
down the
1
gauntlet.
second adrift of Dennis. That's the significant point. Only 1 second adrift of Rowan Dennis. But hey, we've been there before with a couple of other riders who faded on the run-in. So we'll see. But Cancellara may well be riding himself in. If there's anybody that can rise to the occasion, it is this rider from Switzerland. He's a very popular guy as well. He's a family man. Everybody will be cheering on Cancellara. It is going to be a sprint to the line.
Looks like the necklace of Alejandro Valverde, the road racing champion, and the teammate of Nairo Quintana.
He'll be a very, very strong ally for Quintana in the mountains this time. He's a man full of surprises. He's got some terrific performances under his belt. Alberto Contador will be next to follow 1 minute later now. Back out up front. This is the moment. Alberto Contador stretches out his neck. He knows how important the time trials are. He's run time trials before, but they're a lot hillier and longer than this. Fabian Cancellara has gone through the check, and he's only 1 second behind the time of Rowan Dennis. That will come down to the line. Contador starts. This most popular rider from Spain, and attempting this year to do the double. The first time the Giro and the Tour de France will have been won in the same year. And the last man was the late Marco Pantani, 1998. Well, obviously we're going to watch Alberto Contador for a short while, but then we're going to switch back and pick up Fabian Cancellara on course, Paul. If there's anybody in this race who can perform at this level and go faster, it's got to be Cancellara. But let's have a look first of all, starting 1 minute behind Alberto Contador, Chris Froome. So that's it. Froome is underway. It is a clash of the titans now as Froome chases Alberto Contador, split by a minute on the road. But they won't want to be split by a minute when they get to Paris. Remember, in their clashes in the past, when Contador won the Tour of Spain, 4th was Froome. When Froome was 1st in the Tour de France, Contador was 4th. They both didn't finish last year. Now this year, I wonder. The Tour of Spain went a 1-2 in 2014. They're almost equal, Paul. Now the chase. How ironic. They're a minute behind each other on the road.
Well, it'll give us a great indication now as to the first psychological battle as we look at the French national time trial champion not too far away from our commentary position finishing. It is really setting itself up to be a battle between Alberto Contador and Chris Froome. And I'm sure that although Chris carries that British passport, there's a lot of people up and down the continent of Africa supporting him.
Arnaud Damar, he gets underway. He's a sprinter. There's only 2 riders to go now, and that's the top 2 finishers of 1 year ago. Jean-Christophe Perrault will start, and Nibali will be last. But Cancellara taking risks on that right-hander, hitting that reservation. Skimming the bars now. He's got to push on. Remember the time of Rowan Dennis is 14 minutes, 56 seconds. He's running into the last 3 minutes of the ride, and he's still got 2.3 kilometers. It's possible.
It's very possible. The only thing that might go against him is because of the change in the wind this afternoon, they're going out with a tailwind, coming back with a headwind. That makes it much more difficult on the running down towards the finish. 2nd overall last night, Jean-Christophe Perrault. They call him JC. second in the Olympic Games in the mountain bike before deciding to ride on the road.
What an incredible bike rider. We've seen him lead the Tour de France with broken collarbones. We've seen him ride mountain bikes. We've seen him finish second last year.
In fact, he also took time to sit down and talk to us last night, Phil, and said, I don't take quite as many risks as I used to do, especially coming in from the mountain bikes. He said because those little crashes, especially the one I had in the individual time trial a couple of years ago, he said, I don't think it's worth taking the risks anymore.
Well, look at this now. Cancellara, ahead of Cancellara is Rui Costa here, former World Road Race champion, being pulled back for a minute by Cancellara. Cancellara is absolutely flying. He's using him now as a target, and he's going to zoom over his shoulder as he closes right in on. As long as he keeps going, that's legal. As we go back to the start house, the man who dominated the Tour de France last year is last to go. Nibali slips through the gears. He made his reputation on the roads of the United Kingdom in general and Yorkshire in particular. He never lost his grip on the Tour de France till Paris. But all of the favourites on that occasion crashed out by stage 10. Now he's got to face them again, and can he handle them? As we look towards the finish now, Cancellara has gone past Costa. Look at the clock here, 14:30. This is going to be desperately close as he comes up towards the turn now for the line. And this is the crucial flick towards the end. It's going to be close, Paul. It could even go down to 100ths of a second here. The big man from Switzerland slips up the gears, kicks with those legs. 14:56. He's got 6 seconds to get to the line. Fabian Cancellara, is he going to spoil the party for Rowan Dennis? The answer is no, he is not. Rowan Dennis becomes the 7th Australian to wear the yellow jersey in the Tour de France as Cancellara comes in. I know we've got big names to finish, but they'll never beat that man now. It's impossible.
Well, it's going to be very, very difficult to beat Rowan Dennis at the top of the leaderboard. But Fabian Cancellara, like so many other of these riders, was rivaling his time at half distance. But it was the second half of the course where he really paid for those opening moments of effort.
Well, out on course now as we continue to watch the riders swing in. This is Jean-Christophe Perrault. As we switch down the road, Chris Froome, names we're going to be calling from probably stage 10 onwards in the mountains. Let's hope that Chris Froome gets to see stage 10 in the mountains, because last year he crashed out on stage number 5. And he has good form. Alberto Contador also. He left the Tour last year on stage number 10 with a broken leg. The Tour is fraught with danger. It's the nature of the beast. But now this time trial has been significant. And what a great time trial.
Brilliant time trial, though, well traced. Again, I think the Tour de France this year have tried to throw something in for everybody, especially over the first 9 stages. We've got mountain, we've got hilltop finishes, we've got cobblestones, we've got wind and difficult climatic conditions, but we've also got a test here in the individual time trial inside of 14 kilometers by a fraction. They've got some technical corners and, of course, some big power strips as well to give us our first indication of what's happening. Oh, this is Cancellara. Oh, for a moment.
I thought he crashed, but yes. Fabian to give his best. Well, at the moment he sits in 3rd place, Fabian Cancellara, and I don't think the top 3 will be altered now, because the riders going off now are favourites to win the Tour de France. They're not the world's top time trialists, but they'll show why they're so good when we get to the mountains. Do you think there's nobody left to beat Rowan Dennis, Paul?
Well, the only person who possibly could, I would think, is Michael Kwiatkowski. And I haven't seen him anywhere at the intermediate checkpoint.
OK, Jens, you were wrong with Sagan. Is anybody going to beat Rowan Dennis?
No, from the riders left on the course, I don't see anybody being able to beat that time, no. I think it's fairly safe to say that Rowan Dennis is our first yellow jersey here.
All right, well, time will tell, of course. We still have about 10 riders to finish at the moment. We're watching Alejandro Valverde here, who's going to be, as I said earlier, a great ally for Quintana when this race gets a bit ugly in the mountains. Well, take your hats off to Holland, to the Dutch, Paul. They turned out in their thousands today.
Well, they certainly have, and they've cheered every bike rider around here. Interestingly, though, yesterday, Phil, in the pre-race press conference, Rowan Dennis said he'd been dreaming about this bike race. He'd been preparing specifically for this individual time trial from the start of the year. Every individual time trial he rode before the start of this race, he was dreaming and thinking about today. Jean-Christophe Perrault, well, he's thinking a lot further down the line, and let's not forget there's a sting in the tail in the Tour de France this year, because we finish at the top of the Alpe d'Huez on the eve of the final day on the Champs-Élysées.
That's going to be some finish up there, because the winner's going to have to be right at the front on the top of that climb. Alberto Contador, he's done it all before and he's back to do it all again. He hopes today. He's even won time trials in the Tour de France in the past when Cancellara has been riding. But right now he just wants to stay close and safe to the men who could challenge him in the mountains in 10 days' time. Chris Froome rides 1 minute behind Alberto Contador. He won't want to be 1 minute behind him when we arrive in the Pyrenees in that 10 days' time.
No, he would certainly rather be a minute ahead of him on the road. And Chris Froome still waiting to see what the time check is going to be at the first point.
Well, we've got none of the leaders are piercing the top 20 yet, so we'll have to wait and see if we can update you with that. The computer only shows us 20 riders, I'm afraid. But Chris Froome here will want to stay as close as he can to Contador. One incentive, though, he's got him riding ahead of him. He's 31st at 16 seconds, it's saying here on our screens just now.
Well, 16 seconds is not bad for one of the overall contenders.
That's based on the finish in the start finish, yeah. On the best rider at the Czech World. So Contador, if he's slightly ahead or not, we don't really know. They haven't given us that one. The crowd straining their necks here as they look at this man who's become an absolute star of world cycling. He is without doubt the finest climb in the world. It's got to happen on the day. Skimming the crowd line here. Must be 20 decibels into his right ear. Using the whole road here. He could be driving an F1 racing car. He's clipping off the apexes. He's taking the straightest line possible.
Really, he's taking a few risks there, getting his shoulders so close towards the spectators, and it just goes to give you the reflection of how important this individual time trial is. Every little millimetre shaved off around those corners can reflect in the time that this rider stops the clock at the end of the day. This is Vincenzo Nibali, defending champion.
Carries number 1, the number everybody wants to ride the year after, of course. They've won the Tour, that's the number they are given. Number 11 goes to the rider who has finished second. Well, over the next 3 weeks we'll unfold all of our tales, but we'll also point out that the riders that carry 1 on their end of the number are usually the dedicated team leaders of the 9-man teams. Here's the rider, Joaquin Rodriguez, coming up here. He's a good bike rider for the overall, but in the time trial, he's not quite good. He's slipped away there, I'm afraid. 117th place. He's not on form there.
But that's almost 1.5 minutes lost, Phil, in 14 kilometres of racing.
Rodriguez, watch out for him, though. Stays like a finish at Mond, up the hill. He's run there before. He can jump away from a lead group and win there, maybe. This is Valverde.
Well, Valverde, I think, having a great season. He's in good form. He just won the Spanish National Road Racing Championships. He's never been a great individual time trialist, although last year he was the time trial champion of Spain. And looked to me like he was riding quite fast. That's the shape of Jean-Christophe Perrault.
Looking down at Perrault, I'm just thinking, this has been an incredible time trial for atmosphere and everything. There's a real feeling about this year's Tour de France that we are going to be treated to a spectacular race. And Dennis appears to have got it off to an incredible start with a record average speed.
Well, the funny thing is that Chris Froome himself mentioned the fact that, yeah, we're all talking about the big top 4, but he in fact said, well, what that will do, that will move away from people concentrating on the TJ Van Garderens or the Andrew Talansky. So, yes, we've got 4 real big favourites for the Tour de France, but the guys in the second row, those guys could create a bit of a surprise. There's going to be so much to talk about, so much to write about in this year's Tour de France.
I agree, and I think in that second echelon, there's probably 4 or 5 guys. Valverde, for example. Jens, I think you're still listening to our comedy. I hope you're enjoying it, by the way. It's your first day of working for us. Listen, Jens, we're hitting huge noise by the crowd. Well, wait a minute, Jens. We're just going to call Van Garderen coming in here, because this is a man who said he wants a podium place in Paris. It all starts today for the American TJ Van Garderen. And it's not a bad ride either, because he comes around that corner currently in 6th place, but there is a lot of riders in the 15 and 20 second gap. Comes up towards the line. Dennis's time still #1, of course, as TJ Van Garderen tries to sprint it close. He might just get in here top 15 with a big effort towards the line, TJ. But no, as he comes up towards the line, there's a lot of people in that window. 20th place for TJ Van Garderen.
Well, bear in mind who his teammate is, by the way, Phil. The only stage that Rowan Dennis was really given a free flag to fly in was today's stage, individual time trial. The rest of this race, he'll be looking after the overall interests of the American TJ Van Garderen.
Bet your life. Well, Valverde is coming in, but before they all come in, Jens, the noise the crowd make, are the riders conscious of the noise, or are they concentrating just too hard?
We definitely hear the cheering of the spectators. We hear the noise, the clapping, the applause, definitely, and it helps the riders a lot. It gives them like just that last little desire to give everything to please the crowd, to entertain the crowd. And every time a Dutch rider or a very fast time comes to the finish line, I hardly can hear you commentating, because the crowd makes that much noise. There's that much passion in the air here. It's just great to be here and see that.
It is. I think today especially, it's very special. Valverde's coming up towards the line now, and again, another solid performance by Valverde. His teammate Quintana was in the 15-minute margin, but he's gone a little bit slower than Quintana. But that's all right. Valverde's going to hopefully work for Quintana in the mountains here. Comes up 41st place. Next man to arrive will be the 5th from the finish of this stage is Alberto Contador. Now we'll see how he lays down a foundation for the next 3 weeks.
Well, it's a short, violent effort for Alberto Contador, who was getting himself back into form after a little bit of training at altitude after his victory in the Giro d'Italia, nodding his head a fraction there. He knows how violent this effort is. It really is a very difficult, short effort over a period of around about 15 or 16 minutes. He's pushing, he's looking for that final little chicane. Again, not too bad a rider. The main contenders, some of them have lost a couple of chunks of time, and this is the first day in the psychological battle of supremacy.
Contador's losing time for Quintana, so after this first day of racing, advantage Quintana, who's beaten him in the time trial by a few seconds. Okay, maybe a bit more than a few seconds right now, but nonetheless, Contador races up towards the line. It's not position that matters, it's the time lost. And as he hits the line, 15:54, and in fact he has beaten Quintana by 4 seconds.
Well, I don't think that's actually very much when you think about the time trialing prowess of Alberto Contador in the past. What's more important to me now is to see what Chris Froome is going to do, and Chris Froome now is trying to line himself up. Not a bad ride for Froome here as he starts to line himself up for the finish. For him, it could be the psychological blow. The best rider for the overall standing so far has been Robert Hessink, who is 11th, and he lost 33 seconds.
Oh, here comes Froome now, and he's got to stay on a par with Contador and Quintana. And at the moment he's got to sprint the gap shot here. He doesn't want to see 16 minutes come up on that clock. We're only talking seconds, let's face it, but you never know. Remember, Greg LeMond once won the Tour de France by 8 seconds. As Chris Froome hits the line, it's good, it's good. 15:46. The favourites are coming home hand in hand.
Only 3 riders left out on the course.
This is life knowing that he has just set the record in the time trial in the Tour de France. That's Rowan Dennis with his girlfriend, and they're round the back there, and he's going to put on a yellow jersey tonight as the next leader from Australia in the Tour de France. Out to the champion defending, Vincenzo Nibali. And now we see Jean-Christophe Perrault out on course as well, second last year. He'll be hard-pressed to finish second or even third this year if this field goes all the way to Paris. It's going to be a battle royale for sure in the mountains. So also age is not on his side anymore. But he certainly gave the French a lot to cheer last time out. This is Arnaud Demar coming up towards the line now. And he's going to be a little bit down the field here, but that was to be expected. He's hoping to be in amongst the sprint finishers tomorrow for the win in Zeeland.
Well, Phil, talking about the battle for the overall standings, Vincenzo Nibali went through the intermediate time split there with the 18th best time, just 11 seconds off the lead. So that's not a bad performance by him, and I think he will probably come through the best of all of the big four when it comes down to stopping the clock on the final finishing line. J.C. Perrault now can't be too far away from coming up to stopping the line.
He needs to stay inside 16 minutes to stay in amongst the leaderboard going out on tomorrow's stage. He looks as though he might just be on the 16-minute marker here as he comes up to the line. Contador, Quintana and Froome have achieved their objective today. They're only a couple of seconds apart, and we still wait the arrival of the last man, Nibali. And Jean-Christophe Perrault as well. Another very solid performance. Great ride. They're all going out tomorrow looking like they're still going to be good friends. The time trial will have done very little to alter their standings. Just this man to confirm that as the last rider sweeps up the 198 starters in this year's Tour de France. The man that took control of the race last year on a little hill in the city of Sheffield in the UK when he took the yellow jersey on the second day. And now Vincenzo Nibali comes here as the defender of the 2014 Tour de France. And it's going to be a good ride too. It's almost as if these guys had a powwow before the start because they're all finishing within seconds of each other. And Nibali now is coming up towards the line, and it's going to be a very good time from the defending champion as well. But there's the winner, and Rowan Dennis becomes only the 7th Australian to wear the yellow jersey. So, nice to see French television on the ball there, straight in for the interview as we salute Rowan Dennis tonight. So now it's just a matter of prize presentations, but Rowan Dennis will take the Maillot Jaune and, of course, his first ever stage win in the Tour de France, and it's such a crucial one, the opening time trial here. And Rowan Dennis attempted his first Tour de France 2 years ago, and he was unable to start on the 9th day of the race. And so he's back now. He didn't ride last year, and he's on Cadel Evans's BMC team. Cadel Evans, remember, the only Australian to have won the Tour de France, so he's going to be pretty happy with that. But Dennis wins the race today by 5 seconds and 6 seconds over the two greatest time trialists in the world, Tony Martin and Fabien Cancellara. I think we can show that to you now. Just a hatful of seconds covering the top three riders. There it is, an Australian on top. It's approximately 3 o'clock in the morning in Australia, but I'll bet your life they're all going crazy down there. 14:56 was his time, the only man to get inside 15 minutes, and that's a record average speed for a stage of the Tour de France. Looking further down, all of these boys, the majority of them, the time trial champions of the country, but they've all given away a lot of time for the moment to Rowan Dennis. He will try tomorrow to conserve that yellow jersey without putting too much pressure on the team, because remember, their leader is the American from Aspen, TJ Van Garderen. And so this is a diversion as far as the team is concerned. And I suspect it wasn't to be expected either. Well, we'll take a break, but we are not done yet. It's been a great day of opening coverage here on NBCSN. So when we come back, we'll grab all the interviews and show you the first winners of this year's Tour de France.
Today's aerial coverage is presented by Proform. Back live in Utrecht at the end of stage number 1, an impressive day amid very warm temperatures, 89 degrees still here. And gentlemen, as I turn to you and ask you, what did we learn today from this very first stage, Bob?
Meet the new boss of the time trials. Rowan Dennis absolutely stomped the course. What a great ride by the Australian.
I wouldn't say he's that new. I mean, he's been prominent figure on the track, had the hour record. He's been bridesmaid so many different times throughout his career, when he was with us back with Garmin and now moving to the BMC, being the world champion of the team time trial. But yeah, he was the boss today.
All right, let's take a look at some of the big highlights. We'll start off with Fabian Cancellara, who many thought would be the man once again. He has come out and dominated time trials before in early stages of the Tour de France, but not today.
If it was all corners, I think Cancellara would have won by about a half an hour. He's so fast, flying through those. He's such a great bike handler, but in the end, giving it all he had, fell a little bit short of a flying Rowan Dennis, but a great ride by the Swiss champion.
Cancellara would finish in third place, 6 seconds back. How about Tony Martin?
Tony Martin, we really were looking at him to pull something off in it. I think he's scratching his head right now. Who is this kid, Rowan Dennis, who just smoked me today? But he obviously knew the course really well. He's a permanent professional. Always, he knows exactly what to do. He's looked at this course through and through throughout the year. He just lost to a better man today, Rowan Dennis.
5 seconds back was Tony Martin. The German would take second place. And the man that wins it all, the 25-year-old out of Adelaide, South Australia, Rowan Dennis.
Great start to this year, winning the Tour Down Under, world team time trial champion last fall. And on the ascendancy, went a little bit earlier in the day, so I'm wondering if that might not have been an advantage. Maybe a little bit cooler, maybe a little bit less windy than the men that started at the end of the rotation. But picture tells us 1,000 stories, and that is a great shot of Rowan Dennis.
Here are your Stage 1 results in the 2015 Tour de France. Rowan Dennis reigns supreme in the individual time trial. His time, 14 minutes and 56 seconds. As we go down the line, you don't see the big contenders in the top 10. Steve Cummings from MTN Quebeca rounding out that top 10, 32 seconds back of Dennis. And let's listen in on the interview with your winner, Rowan Dennis.
Congratulations. On a day like today, so many things can go wrong, but everything went perfect for you.
Everything went perfect. We went with the tactic of going off early. No stress, don't have to sit around all day, and just set a benchmark and make everyone else chase me, and it worked out perfectly.
Are you in shock a little bit? This is such a massive victory. First stage, and with it comes a special prize, the yellow jersey.
A little bit of shock. I've been working a lot with the team. Obviously, we came out earlier, about a month earlier. Really early wake up as well that day, just to check out the course and recon it. And Tour de France, yellow jersey. It's a dream. I've always wished to be in this position, and now I am.
How long before it soaks in, do you think?
I think it was soaking in about 5 minutes ago when I saw most of the biggest threats coming in, and coming in just behind me. It was almost surreal, but a few emotions came out for sure.
Always good when a plan goes to execution.
Oh, absolutely. BMC, they have the resources to put the time and effort into winning big bike races, and all of that work paid off big dividends. Tour de France, it's no bigger than today, and the yellow jersey hanging in the balance, and that will go to BMC for the start of the Tour de France.
And that's actually good for TJ Van Garderen. Also, when you have that yellow jersey, you're at the front of the peloton. You have to got to stay at the front, make sure that all those breakaways aren't getting too far ahead. So you have to actually get a little bit more leeway when you have that yellow jersey. You get to stay at the front a little bit more, and that could be really good for TJ.
So Team BMC has the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Rowan Dennis, but the bigger picture is, how did the contenders do? The big four we talked about. All right, first up was Nairo Quintana, guys, and give him a grade, Bob. How do you think he fared?
A- for Nairo Quintana. Didn't lose a lot of time to Contador, Froome, or Nibali, and when we get into the mountains, it was so close. Those seconds he was behind will turn into an advantage for him. So a great ride by Nairo Quintana.
Christian, out of the gate, did anyone look more determined than TJ Van Garderen?
No one looked much more determined than TJ. And TJ to get in there in the top 20, taking some time out of people like Nibali and Contador. If you're going to give him an A-, he has to get an A.
TJ bringing it home with a good time. Another contender, a two-time winner of the Tour de France, Alberto Contador.
B+ for Alberto. Decent ride.
If
okay, I'm being a little bit generous on that, but Alberto's been very good in his career in the time trial, and I wouldn't be surprised, a little bit disappointed in this particular ride. A lot of mountains to come. Maybe we don't need to read too much into that, but he's done great in time trials in the Tour de France in the past when he's been at his best. So we'll have to see how that plays out for Contador.
Christian being a little stingy on the grades. How do you give him Chris Froome?
I'm a rough grader, that's for sure. But I know that Alberto is much better, and I know that Chris Froome is a lot better too. And he's a very similar ride to Alberto Contador. They didn't do to their maximum. They definitely conceded some time to some better riders in the day.
So Chris Froome bringing it home, and then finally the defending champion Vincenzo Nibali, the last man to go. He waited around all day long, watched the times come in, and then he took to the course.
Very close to the times of Contador and Froome. I'm not sure how Nibali will look at this. He's been up and down in his time trials in the Grand Tours. Sometimes he has great ones like last year's Tour de France, and other days he struggles, and I think today is one of the latter.
So here are your contenders, and it's TJ Van Gardner in the American on Team BMC with the fastest time, just 42 seconds off the pace. Christian, no big alarms on that because there's not massive time gaps, are there?
No, there's not big alarms going, but you're very happy if you're TJ Van Gardner today. You took some time out of the people. He has a yellow jersey, like we said before, with Rowan Dennis, so they're going to be able to sit at the front, stay out of trouble in this first week of racing.
As we head to the stage podium once again, Rowan Dennis, 25 years of age, Team BMC out of Adelaide, South Australia. They say you always remember your first. Christian, Bob, what does this mean to the team when you start things off on a tour that has been described as just an epic, an instant classic, the way it's been laid out, and you guys were the first one to wear the yellow jersey?
I had the pleasure of getting the yellow jersey in my team a couple of times in the Tour de France early in the tour, and believe me, your morale, no matter how tired you are, it just goes right through the roof. It skyrockets, and you see your teammate or you yourself have the yellow jersey at the end of the table. It is the most fantastic feeling a bike racer can have. It's great for team spirit.
And the responsibilities that go along with it. Rowan Dennis in your DirecTV yellow jersey standings after stage 1 of 21. Dennis has the yellow jersey and the lead. Tony Martin in second. Fabian Cancellara sits in third, and Tom Dumoulin currently sitting in fourth place for Team Giant. Castroviejo had a great run as well. He's in sixth for Movistar. There you see the rest of the top 10. Steve Cummings, MTN, Kubeka. Back to the podium we go. The fans here at Utrecht, no one is leaving. Everyone's soaking this all in. And here it comes, the moment this young man has been waiting for. We heard early in the broadcast our Jens Voigt talking about Jan Bakelants when he won the yellow jersey 2 years ago back in Corsica. He talked about actually sleeping in that yellow jersey. Bob, if you won the yellow jersey, would you have slept in it?
Absolutely. I might have retired right on the spot. Might not ever get any better than that.
Rowan's had a bunch of jerseys in his day, and this is obviously head and shoulders above any jersey he's ever owned. He might be sleeping that tonight. Hope his air conditioner works a little bit better than ours, though.
Du côté de Sa Majesté le Roi et des différents ministres et maires et représentants de ce territoire, rappelle-nous les noms.
Well, Team BMC has the honor of holding on to the yellow jersey to start the Tour de France as we head to stage number 2. What does this possibly mean for the confidence of TJ Van Gardner, the leader of BMC?
Oh, it's a big difference. I mean, like I said before, when you have that, like Bob was saying, you know, tonight they're going to have champagne in the room. I mean, this is already, the team's starting on a big high. No one crashed, had great results. Both TJ did a great ride, and Rowan, the two guys they really want to support. Check in that first day. Now tomorrow, they got to stay at the front, stay out of trouble. And with that yellow jersey, you're given that's a little bit more wiggle room. Stay in the front. They're not going to fight with you as much. So you get that, hopefully, get through tomorrow unscathed, and then you get the Mur de Huy. So I think they're starting off really well.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great start to the Tour de France for TJ. He couldn't ask for a little more better from the start of the race. And so The question is, how much energy does BMC put into defending the yellow jersey now when TJ way down the road will try to contend for that and the podium? So that will be something they'll have to talk about for Rowan Dennis. So, I mean, that's why you race bikes. That's why you work so hard throughout the year, and that's a great result.
The beautiful thing about winning on day one is you pretty much pick up all the jerseys on an individual time trial like this. So Rowan Dennis gets the stage win, gets the yellow jersey. Now he's back for the green jersey. This is quite a collection.
Yeah, he better not wear all of these tonight.
Remettre évidemment avec l'appui de Bernard Hinault le maillot vert de ce leader de ce classement des sprinteurs.
10-second time bonuses on the open road during the Tour de France. I don't see any of the sprinters taking over the yellow jersey. So Rowan Dennis could be looking at having it for a number of days.
Good point.
Cobbled stage coming up, stage number 4. This guy can get up a hill. He's a solid climber, so he could defend the yellow jersey on the Mur de Huy. If that happens, we can go all the way through the team time trial with Rowan Dennis in the yellow jersey. And when BMC gets to the team time trial, if they still have the yellow jersey, well then, you're not going to lose it until the mountains.
There are your green jersey standings once again. Rowan Dennis, Tony Martin, Fabian Cancellara, the top 3. These will all change over the next 2 or 3 days, but Rowan Dennis just soaking. What a perfect time, Christian, to get your first Tour de France stage victory.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of times you see, like, when you have a big victory like this, you lose it the next day. But like Bob said, I don't see him losing it too often. I mean, okay, he's going to have to stay at the front. It's going to be dangerous the next couple of days, but as long as he stays up at the front and he's got a great team to protect him and TJ Van Garderen. But again, back to what you said, that's a good point. Like, how much energy do you really want to spend? You have to think, hey, we're not finishing this race for another 3.5 weeks. Every day counts, and every day on the front definitely counts.
Bob, one of the other Americans we were tracking at the top of the show, Andrew Talansky, came in a minute 15 off the pace. What do you read into that?
He's going to have some time to make up. He's going to have to make up some ground on his rivals if he wants to get into the top 5 of the Tour de France. Nibali did a solid ride. This is the American time trial champion. A little bit disappointing ride by Andrew Talansky. It's not his specialty. He's much better in competitive races, long, arduous, hard days in the mountains. Lots of miles to go for Andrew Talansky, but he does have some ground to make up on his rivals in the overall standings.
20 more stages to go for Andrew Talansky and his squad, looking to make up some time possibly in the mountains. And remember, we talked about this at the very top of the show, guys. The next 7 days are so tricky. So much can happen. Bob, as you know very well, like we saw last year in 5 days, Chris Froome crashing out.
Well, BMC did their homework. For TJ, Rowan Dennis getting the jersey. Nibali looked solid. Contador, not too bad. Froome, he and all of his teammates, steady performances. But now the job of the teammates is going to begin, and that will go all the way through to stage 10, the first big day in the mountains. So the teammates of our contenders, now their work begins, and we'll see how they get through the first week of racing. Critical part of the Tour de France.
We play a game stock up, stock down. Obviously, BMC's feeling pretty good. You guys talked about their beverage of choice tonight. It'll be champagne as they celebrate. How about Movistar with Nairo Quintana? Are you surprised by the performance he turned in today?
No, not surprised at all. I think he's a very competent rider. I've said that many times before. He's a very aggressive rider within the peloton, so I looked to see him in the front, in the crosswinds, and he did a good job in the time trial today. It wasn't so bad. I mean, this is a guy who's 56 kilos, 123 pounds. He's a little man. This is dead flat out here. So he did a great ride. So if he's going that fast here, he's going to be flying up the mountains.
Absolutely. A pure climber like Quintana is, when he goes that well in a time trial, it means he is on pretty good form.
Yep.
And he's the type of rider that gets better and better and better as a 3-week Grand Tour progresses. So that's a solid performance. I'd like to add another name who had a great ride, Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman. Thibaut Pinot, you can't put him in the same category as time trial specialist and still finish in the top 20 on today's stage. He's also a great climber in the mode of Quintana, so watch for him to really come to life in the mountains.
And one more, Hessink. Robert Hessink was even ahead of him. Okay, he's Dutch. He was obviously very motivated today, but those guys did some big rides today to be up in the top 20, close to top 10.
Well, the jersey presentations continue. It's the best young rider jersey presentation after stage number 1 as we look at some of the beautiful countryside just outside of Utrecht. And wow, Groundhog Day once again, Rowan Dennis. I think I'm with you, Bob Roll. I think it's time to retire. He's got all the jerseys. He says, I am the man right now.
He could keep this jersey for the foreseeable future in the Tour de France, all the way through the Pyrenees, theoretically. Not a mountain climber per se in the high mountains of the Tour de France and the Grand Tours, but can get up the climbs and has a handy lead in the overall standings. And I think he'll continue to get more time as the first 10 days of this bike race progress. All the prizes to a deserving winner on today's stage. Rowan Dennis, great ride. He was ready for this. He prepared for it.
Yep.
He's been working on it when they announced the race course. So that is a confirmation that that hard work has paid off.
And there you see the white jersey standings after stage one. Rowan Dennis, Tom Dumoulin sitting in second place, and a lot of up-and-coming names there in the top 5 for the best young riders. We take a look at the map for tomorrow, stage number 2. And everyone that has told me about this course and this race, it's all about the Dutch winds coming in off the coast.
Well, you can imagine that the attacking from the drop of the flag to start the stage is going to be absolutely insane. Riders will try to find the early breakaway, but when the race course gets out here to the North Atlantic and the crosswinds start howling across the Zeeland Peninsula of the Netherlands, that's when echelons can form. That's when the peloton can blow to pieces, and the strongest teams and riders will be in the front, and the people that aren't ready, they could lose some big time tomorrow. It's dead flat, but it's the winds, if they blow, that will make a huge difference.
Now check out that profile. You're not going to see that too often. Huh? There's a lot of zeros going on. When you're not too many times, you see 0 at the profile, like 0 meters, as in you're in the water.
Guys, this was an 8.5-mile individual time trial in the heat. How much effort did they put out, and is it a quick recovery, easy recovery for tomorrow and what they'll face?
No, it's not an easy recovery by any stretch of the imagination. Hot conditions and a full gas effort. 8.5 miles over 16 minutes is not